world gone insane. An upside-down civilization cannot be real. A world of madness and terror.
It's the Dana Gould Hour.
Today's show is brought to you by Casper. Get $50 towards any mattress purchase by visiting casper.com/Dana and using the promo code Dana. That's Casper. CASPER.com. November or December. I'm not sure when I'm going to get this thing out. This is well worth the wait, ladies and gentlemen. Following up our candy-coated Halloween spectacular, we are now going to get down to business, and we are going to solve the problems of this poor, tortured earth. My name is Dana Gould, and I will be joined today by Edward Pepitone, the bitter Buddha himself. Follow him on the Twitter at @EddiePepitone. Eddie and I ventured down to the University of Southern California and confronted in his office Dan Schnurr, who was the head of the University of Southern California's Jessa Unruh School of Public Policy. And we wanted to find out what the hell is going on with the election and the state of our great nation. And I dare say, I think we've solved everything. I am also joined by comedian Julia Prescott, whose album Every Joke on This Album Kills Because I Cut the Ones That Didn't is now out and available, and we will be discussing its recording, which took place over a series of one-nighters in the Deep South. Funny side note, halfway through the recording, she lost her voice. We're also joined by writer and public radio's Peter Gilstrap, who will help me pry the lid off the barrel of pop culture creepy that is my meat. Hey! Speaking of creepy, why not come out and see me live? I'll be performing in Arlington, Virginia at the Arlington Draft House on December 4th and 5th, and on New Year's Eve weekend at the Cap City Comedy Club in Austin, Texas. Details and ticket links available at danagould.com.
It's showtime.
We are here on a brisk autumn day here in beautiful Los Angeles, California at the Jessa Unruh School of Public Policy at the University of Southern California, right down the street from Felix Dodge. I am joined by the director of the Jessa Unruh Institute for Politics. Politics, not policy, Dan Schnurr.
This is the sound of my voice.
I'm also joined by the oldest living rockette, Ed Pepitone.
This is the sound of my voice. Kick, 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 girls, kick.
Now, I didn't know we could show off.
Yes, Ben.
No, it's all
about that.
We're all it's showbiz. It is showbiz. We're in the middle of this election, and I actually wanted to talk to an adult about it. Because
why did you bring me along?
Because I like to keep a balance. It's like the Force, you know.
You're
there's
right.
you can't have Luke without Darth. They need each other. Supposedly there are two parties. I think there are now three parties. Tell me if I'm wrong, Dan. You're the professional. I feel that we don't have Democrats and Republicans. We have the Fox News Party, and they are in an uneasy alliance with what used to be the Republican Party. I don't know if you've ever seen the film The Manster, but it was a Japanese horror movie about a Siamese twin. One of them was a hideous monster, and it would constantly bite the side of the other guy's head. That's what I see the Republican Party as. Like, it's a Siamese twin in which one of them hates the other and is always within biting distance. And then the Democrats, or what used to be the Democrats, are just like, we're kind of not what the Republicans are. That seems to be their ideological view at this point.
Which is not much of an ideological view.
It's a non-existent. Yeah,
We are kind of like the Republicans.
we're just not as bad as they are.
We are the tallest jockey at the racetrack. Vote for us. And there's a certain lack of motivation and inspiration that comes behind that.
Yeah, exactly. And just sort of whatever it takes to win, and then it doesn't matter anymore because Rick Overton, a very, very talented comedian. But he said, I'm paraphrasing, the country is a Mack truck and every 4 years we vote to put a bulldog or an eagle on the hood. I think the people who thought that Al Gore and George W. Bush were the same guy, so it didn't really matter, would argue that maybe that's not true. Although it remains to be seen. Maybe Al Gore and George Bush were the same guy, but John Edwards and Dick Cheney certainly weren't the same guy, although both of them morally reprehensible
for entirely different
for
reasons.
entirely different reasons.
For entirely different
First of all,
reasons.
can I just tell you how upset I am just at the outset?
Sure.
I've been prepping for this. I think, okay, this is a new non-academic, no offense, entertainment audience for me. I've been prepping. I've been reading Entertainment Weekly. I've been on the blogs. I'm ready for all this. I'm ready for a good pop culture reference. And you throw out Manster.
The Manster.
Okay.
Yeah, really, that threw me too.
You've
So
got to know
I'm
who you're
humbled.
dealing with.
No, Dana has very eclectic horror.
Yeah, we're going to get into Rondo Hatton and Tor Johnson.
I was ready
and we're
for
gonna
something
stay there.
from Bob's Burgers or something, so I'm out of my league
Nothing,
here.
by the
That's
way, nothing
clear.
wrong with
Okay.
Bob's Burgers.
I will just tell you that when you compared Ed and myself to Luke and Darth, meaning, of course, that one of us is the other one's father, for those of you on
I can see
radio,
that.
and that is everybody, you could not see the look of horror on Ed's face. All right, back to
We can rule the universe together, Dad.
and this is where we start? Okay, good.
You just have to loan me money.
Join me and we can rule the universe as father and son. What else you got?
Okay, that must have been an outtake.
We could go to the ice capades.
So I agree with you. There are three parties, but I think I would disagree on the definition of them.
Awesome.
Thank you.
There is absolutely. There is a Fox News party. You're exactly right about that. There is an MSNBC Comedy Central party. And then there is a party that exists between the ideological 40-yard lines that increasingly feels less and less in common with either of the two dominant parties in American politics.
I would put myself in that party.
I would too.
What would you say that party is between? Because I am a
In the-
football
in the-
fan, but I'm losing.
And I'm in the 40-yard line where I feel like
You don't fall in with either one of those camps.
No, I mean, if I watch Rachel Maddow,
Who told her she was funny? We've talked about this.
yeah, we're actually there's a bounty out on whoever told Rachel Maddow she was funny.
The same person who told Dennis Miller that it was better to be political than to be funny. Okay,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's the same person.
This is a good move for you. I agree with a lot of her positions, but I also know that I live in a country where half the people disagree and that I have to live with these people and that they have a say too. I understand that this is a big, diverse country and that you've got to give and take. I've been in a marriage. I know how they work and I know how they end. You know, when you get married, they say till death do you part, which is just God's way of saying, I can get you out of this. I didn't get divorced. I cheated death. I tend to agree with a lot of what she says, but I know that a lot of the people don't. And I look at specifically now the Republican primary, and like I do feel like
What
standing up on a building going, these people are carnies. These people, I think John Kasich is a responsible adult.
But you can't get nominated in either party as a responsible adult.
Which boggles my mind.
Well-
All
All right, start with the premise that our system of democracy is not one of majority rule. It is a system of minority rule with majority acquiescence.
Yes.
So the loudest and the most insistent voices on both sides of the aisle tend to drive the dialogue because the candidates know that's where they will find their reward in terms of volunteers, in terms of grassroots support, and in terms of financial support. So if you are analyzing either party's primary from a pure cost-benefit standpoint,
Right.
you say, I've got to rush as far away from midfield as I possibly can. I got to rev up my base in my own ideological end zone because that's my ticket to the party nomination. And so an otherwise reasonable person, some might point to Kasich, some might point to Hillary Clinton, and watch them both veer further and further from midfield in order to appeal to their respective parties' base. And we end up with the three-party system that you and I have been talking about.
And that's fine. I think a great example of that is George Herbert Walker Bush, who ran a very, very hard campaign, a brutal campaign against Mike Dukakis, a ruthless campaign against Mike Dukakis, and campaigned very hard to the right, but was a very moderate, responsible president
compared to what we have now.
Yeah, and just in terms of when you read about it, if you read John Meacham's book about him, like he was a completely responsible, mature, rational human being, had every right to be in that office. And then once he got elected, he moved more towards the center. I don't see Donald Trump. I don't see Ted Cruz. I don't see, Carly Fiorina, Ben Carson as having the ability to do that. I can't envision them in a position of responsibility.
Well, you can't see them doing that because, and let's talk about Trump and Carson, because they couldn't do that.
Yeah.
Because the logical outgrowth of a party that demands more and more ideological extremism from its candidates is it has to leave the ideological playing field or the political playing field altogether.
Right.
Donald Trump is a silly man who says silly things.
He's a wrestler.
Well, exactly.
But
let's give him
talks to the American public like he's a wrestler.
But let's give him credit where credit's due. He's a silly man who says silly things, which has been a phenomenally successful business model to him for a long, long time.
Right.
Everyone's a victim of their own success. He knows that saying outrageous things is the way he gets attention. You're a New Yorker, so you remember this. Mm-hmm. Way back in the 1970s, Donald Trump was your perfectly normal, average, garden variety billionaire and was miserable because no one was paying any attention to him.
Yeah.
So he picks a fight with Ed Koch, remember, over Rockefeller Center, the skating rink? And all of a sudden, everyone's paying attention to Donald Trump. He goes, wait a minute. This is more fun than being an anonymous billionaire.
That was
absolutely. And ever since then, the louder and the more obnoxiously he picks a fight with somebody, the more attention he gets. And whether it's in New York City politics or on The Apprentice or in the Republican presidential primary, he's always been rewarded for this kind of behavior. So why should he stop? And he's not going to be the party's nominee for president. He's not going to be the president of the United States. So he's exhibiting learned behavior.
3 months ago, when people talk about Donald Trump, it's like, oh, great, and we'll get a game show host too. Maybe we'll run Alex Trebek.
Well, it's a celebrity-driven culture.
Right.
It really is.
But his success is mind-boggling. I don't believe that he could be elected president, only because I think over time he couldn't bear up to the pounding and the scrutiny that running for that job requires. I don't think he has the intellectual discipline to stay on message, and I don't think that he can withstand.
Bold statement there, Dana.
But he's.
You just got banned.
We're gonna throw down. but I also don't think that. But I'm beginning to doubt that he will not be his party's nominee. That's a double negative.
Yes, but I don't ain't agree with you.
Yes, I not love you, Dan.
He will not be the Republican Party nominee for president.
What's going to happen?
I'll tell you what's going to happen. Is at some point, probably once the caucuses and primaries have started, the field is going to winnow. And when there are 15 candidates running for president, there's no way on a debate stage to follow up in a satisfactory way with a candidate who says something fundamentally ridiculous. And there isn't a way for the news media to follow up because they're trying to cover a dozen or more people. When there's 3 or 4 people on that stage instead of 10, that's when the candidates like Trump and Carson run into problems because they can make a very good first impression to their core audiences, but they can't sustain under the kind of questioning that just doesn't exist in that crowded field.
And they have said things that if Hillary Clinton said them, she would be hung. Hanged. Sorry. Hanged. What I find interesting, like Ben Carson said, and I'm paraphrasing, I was in a Popeye's chicken and a guy came in with a gun and I said, you don't want to rob me. I pointed to the cash register and said, I think you want him. That's not
presidential.
That's not a brave president. But like, if like people say, like, no, that would get you assassinated. It's like, no, that's not what we envision our leaders to do. Don't kill me, kill him. And people just, I love it. And my mother, who's, I don't think I could explain to her how a bicycle works, but
you guys sound very close.
But we stopped talking days after my birth. But she loves Donald Trump.
She does.
She's what you call a low information voter.
I think that's sort of unnecessary repetition.
Yeah.
Donald Trump voter, low information voter.
exactly.
Yeah.
Anyway, boy, did I follow up that one. Go on.
But he says he's going to build a wall. He's going to build a wall, a physiologically impossible, an engineering impossibility. He's going to do it. If he was elected and he never mentioned it again, they wouldn't get upset. They go, I can't do it. They know he's not going to do anything he says. And it's all, but my guy wins. So I'm happy.
And I don't even know that it's my guy wins, because my guess is a lot of them know he can't and shouldn't be president. But they're so upset and they're so angry with politics as usual, they're looking for a way to vent. So Trump, and I would argue Sanders, and I'm trying to think who I would offend more with the comparison. They're both sort of political primal screams. Mm-hmm. Neither one of them is going to be president. Neither one of them is going to be the nominee of their respective party. But
do you agree with me that Bernie Sanders, although compared to Donald Trump, Bernie Sanders, if you were to not see them and you just heard their voices, Bernie Sanders, you would be much more likely to think was actually B. Arthur.
Then Donald Trump? That's not a very high bar, but yeah, I'd agree with you.
I think Arnold. It's a beautiful, crisp, 85-degree winter day here in Los Angeles, California. And I am joined by the co-host of the Everything's Coming Up podcast, the unofficial, but one that I did, Simpsons podcast. She's also a very talented writer and actress and comedian whose new album is out entitled Everything on This Album Kills Because I Cut Out the Stuff That Didn't.
Yeah.
Please welcome the lovely and talented Julia Prescott.
This is the sound of my voice.
I'm also joined by a very good friend of mine, a producer on National Public Radio, and something of a pop cultural historian, author, actor. You're not an actor.
No, I am.
See?
I have acted.
You have acted?
Yes. And I may act some more.
You might act some more. We might act right now. Mm-hmm. Please welcome Peter Gilstrap.
This is the sound of my voice.
Peter, Julia. Peter, where are you from originally?
Pasadena, California.
So you're a Southern California dude.
Oh,
Julia,
cool.
you are
North Hollywood, California.
You are also a Southern California dude.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's unusual.
Cool. Yeah.
That is.
We're the last two people.
North
Yeah.
Hollywood.
Yeah.
Well, those North Hollywood girls.
Yeah.
Where do you begin?
North Hollywood, where Southern hospitality is just east of West Pasadena.
Yeah. Yeah. God, the North Hollywood Twitter, I will say, is the funniest non-comedy Twitter that I follow.
The city of North Hollywood's
The
Twitter?
city of North Hollywood. It may be just at NoHo Arts District. You're getting...
Well, now you're into it. The
Yeah.
NoHo Arts District, which for people don't know, is a 4-block section of town in the valley that has a Hot Wings place.
There's a Hot Wings,
there's a Starbucks there.
And a sign that says NoHo Arts.
And every 3 feet, a sign that says NoHo Arts District. It's it's like Paris in the 20s.
Oh my God. If you
Mine
give
is all the
yourself a
art
treat.
and talent
It is like
baggage.
it is like Weimar Berlin. It is.
Listen, if you haven't seen a matinee performance of Menopause the Musical, you have not lived.
It is famous for musicals and plays starring celebrities you are shocked to hear are not dead.
Yeah, it's
isn't it-
incredible.
Bonnie Franklin is alive?
I know.
Yes, and she's doing 6 Rooms with a View.
Yeah. Well,
6 Rooms Riverview.
Yeah,
every play title has a pun. It's the worst. Ugh,
and is Marty Allen still doing Pippin there?
Hello there.
Last time I drove through, there was up in lights.
yeah.
But it also has my favorite coffee shop in Southern California, Republic of Pie.
Ooh.
What makes that your favorite?
I don't like the inside. I like the coffee, and
Sometimes you just need a simple reason.
It's got bricks and wood. It feels a little East Coasty, feels a little villagey. I kind of like it. So why did you, Julia, on your album? I using the archaic term on your Edison disc.
Yes.
Your Edison cylinder. Ask Mrs. Edison about the Edison cylinder.
Oh boy.
Thanks. We're done.
Bye.
Bye. The lady's leaving as well. She should. You recorded it in various locales in the Deep South.
Yeah.
Where and why?
I get asked this question a lot.
For good reason.
And for good reason. I'd kind of fallen in love with the Deep South by accident because I started going on these tours by myself as a stand-up. I first did a tour called I Just Really Wanted to Go to Dollywood because I also love weird roadside-y attractions. So I did that, and it was the first time I went through the South. And it was interesting to see like little pockets of comedy scenes where you can sort of see like the doppelgangers of people in LA. Here's the person that runs the town in Knoxville. Here's the person that runs the town in Athens.
And the comedians are similar. Like here's the Paul F. Tompkins of Front Royal, Virginia.
There's always like a puppet guy. There's always like, a guy who is complaining about the fact that everyone good in Mobile, Alabama leaves, like shocked. I got a talking to by a booker that lasted 15 minutes of, well, I don't know why people leave Mobile, Alabama.
Sure. Yeah, well, there was a guy in San Francisco that was stunned that people would move to L.A.
Yeah.
Why would somebody in show business want to move to Los Angeles? Right. If you can believe it, a club owner.
Wow, that's
the occupation
astounding.
that gave the world Jack Ruby. I mean, it's not like it just takes any strange shaped marble on the table.
Yeah.
So where did you record your album?
All throughout Alabama, Atlanta, Athens, Georgia, throughout Tennessee, and New Orleans, and
now Athens and New Orleans, I can envision a great comment. But and this isn't viewpoint. I would think I go into Mobile, Alabama, and it sounds like an album of crickets. I remember working in the Carolinas. I was working with a comedian named Janine Hansen, and she was walking to the stage in Greenville, South Carolina, and a woman grabbed her as she was walking to the stage and said, "No feminist jokes."
Whoa! I would have had to have left at that point. Oh my God.
What I find interesting about it is it's neither better nor worse, another world.
It is another world.
You know,
is.
The South is as much of another world to people from the North as the North is to people from the South.
Yeah.
It's amazing to me that in this country there was never an actual war between the North and the South.
No, I lived in Nashville for 8 months, which is in the South.
Yeah, I did a stop there, yeah.
Where'd you play there?
I played a cigar store.
Now, wait a minute. Do you go into town knowing where you're going to do a show, or is this like the first Wings tour where you just pull into town with Denny Lane and say, we've got a band?
Yeah, do you have a cafeteria we can show up in? And you're just driving to all these places?
I'm just driving, yeah.
By yourself?
By myself.
How much?
Wow.
What's the weaponry that you have with you? Have you seen Deliverance?
Yeah, I should have thought this one out more. At least a pocket knife or something. No, I was just driving with my Moxie as my defense. Yeah, and a lot of podcasts.
My Defense is Moxie is, of course, the famous Raymond Chandler novel.
Yeah.
It was a Henry Fonda movie. With the 8 months I lived there, I didn't see any comedy. Unless you count a George Jones show as comedy. Which, because I had to see George Jones. You know, he's the legend. And he was just, his voice was shot. And about between every 3 or 4 songs, he would just do a commercial for his latest cookbook or his water brand, you know, George Jones water.
George has been bathing in this water for years, and now it's been bottled.
You know, and there were people going up and down the aisles, like cigarette girl type things with, hawking George Jones wear and all this stuff. And it was crazy.
My mom is from the South. My mom is from the northern side of the South. She's from, as I mentioned earlier, she's from Front Royal, Virginia. So as a kid, I would go to Virginia like every summer. And even Virginia, which is, you know, it's right outside of D.C., still, you get out into away from the metropolitan areas, it's just a drastically different culture than what you're used to.
Well, it was the capital of the Confederacy.
It was the capital of the Confederacy, and I might have told this story on this podcast, if not, with my uncle, Beverly, who
I love it already.
Has a tattoo on his forearm that somehow tells the people at the border that he's not allowed in Germany. Whatever he did when he was stationed in Germany, they said, you can't come back. So read about World War II and then think, and this guy freaked them out. Well, I don't know what he did. So we are at his little farm area, and there is a pig that is trying to hump the leg of a cow. And my Uncle Beverly laughs and says, That goddamn pig thinks that cow's its mama.
What a sentence.
Of course, it sounded like this. I goddamn pig ain't cow's mama.
Right.
Now, why is Sanders put into? To me, that boggles my mind that you put Trump and Sanders into the same category
in a very specific way. There's obviously huge differences between them, not just ideological, but in terms of background.
One is an actual politician.
Yeah, whether you agree with Bernie Sanders or not, he has devoted his life to public service and elective office, and that's a tremendous difference.
Very much so.
Neither. Fair enough.
Why I'm boggled that you put them in the same.
I think what he's saying is they serve the same function in their respective parties.
Like I said, they are a primal scream. If you are an aggrieved progressive and you are frustrated that Barack Obama has not governed the way you thought he would when he was elected, Bernie Sanders is a mechanism through which you can express your frustration with that.
And the way that Howard Dean did in 2004.
When it was literally a primal scream.
Yeah. And both from Vermont.
But isn't Sanders addressing the most important issues to me of any other candidate, the fact that corporations are absolutely in control of everything. It cost, I was telling Dana on the way here, I read this, and that's not to brag, I read, that it took $4 billion to get elected in 2012, and this year they're talking about $20 billion.
You're talking about two different issues and two important ones. Mm-hmm. There's a question of income inequality and the role of big business in America today. The second question, which I think is even the more important one, is the obscene way that unlimited amounts of money have polluted our political system.
Right. We're talking about an election process here as if it even matters. I mean, it's like, to me, it's an argument between the right and the far right in this country at this point. And Sanders is an anomaly about that. I consider Hillary, to be just another branch of right-wing politics to me.
I watched Cornel West the other day, who's supporting Sanders, desperately trying to. He spoke.
He does support him.
Not only does he, there was.
I love Brother Bernie.
There was an event.
I love Cornel West.
There was an event in Iowa a few days ago in which Clinton and Martin O'Malley both appeared. Sanders couldn't be there. Cornel West spoke on Sanders' behalf, and it's worth watching on YouTube because Cornel West struggled admirably to try to find a polite way of saying that Hillary Clinton doesn't believe in anything. You obviously did not have to struggle to the same degree he did to make the same point.
Well, the Bushes and the Clintons, have we had enough of that royal family?
Oh, we're not even close to being done. In 2036, you will see George P. Bush and Chelsea Clinton running for president.
Yeah, how bad is that?
People didn't mind it when it was the Kennedys, you have to be honest. It's like, I was a big fan of I wanted Robert Kennedy to win. That's another conversation that I want to have.
That is another conversation.
That I want to have.
Oh my gosh, I don't think we can talk about that on a comedy program. I wouldn't know how to be funny about Bobby Kennedy's presidency, so let's go back to campaign finance reform.
But I do want to get to that.
Okay.
I've read everything about it.
Oh, because you're versed in this, let's get to that. No, go ahead.
Any other topics that you're particularly expert in that you'd like to put me on the spot about?
Skyfall.
Japanese horror flicks.
More importantly, Skyfall or Spectre. Eddie.
Skyfall, come on.
Bill Clinton is widely considered to be a very effective moderate Republican.
Good way to put him. And the Democrats parade him out like he is the heart of the Democratic
Party.
Because
he has a D after his name. But I've heard from Republicans that Bill Clinton was a very pro-business, moderate Republican.
You remember, these are the people that tried to impeach him, so take it with a grain of salt.
I don't think, exactly. But because he had a D after his name, and he wasn't liberal on social. There was nothing liberal about the Defense of Marriage Act.
He was the architect of NAFTA.
Yeah.
So you don't like the idea that the Democrats are parading Bill Clinton around. I guess the question is, then what are the alternatives? Jimmy Carter's not going to rally the country for you. Obama is not either.
Yeah.
Short of pulling a weekend at Bernie's with Franklin Delano Roosevelt.
Right.
Exactly. What are you
saying? I would not buy a used car from Hillary Clinton, but I would vote for her because I want to watch Sean Hannity watch her win. I watched that footage of Karl Rove running down the corridor to see that his numbers are wrong on election night in 2008.
Which coming back all the way to the first point you made about, you said the Democratic Party's ideology is that we're slightly better than the Republicans. Well, you just proved its appeal.
I agree.
I'll vote for Hillary Clinton to make Sean Hannity mad is a pretty good articulation of why the Democratic ideology that you laid out earlier can be an effective one.
But they're insane because Fox News is insane. What do they serve? They yell at Hillary Clinton, who in my estimation is just another part of the Republican Party. So, I mean, Fox News, to me, do you guys agree with this? They're just completely, I mean, they're shrill. They don't have anything to say that's based in reality.
Well, and although they draw a much larger audience than MSNBC, I'd put the two in the same bucket. You may happen to agree with one more than the other, but both are overly shrill, both are overly confrontational, and both address the interests of the opposite party simply as an object of ridicule.
Yes, I do agree. I know Chris Hayes and Rachel Maddow. My brother will vote for a pigeon to watch them watch it win. Rachel Maddow and Chris Hayes embody everything that my brothers think is wrong with this country.
And there's nothing wrong with that. Whether it's Hannity or Maddow, that's just fine. But in my mind, that's dessert. That's chocolate cake.
Right.
Read the newspaper, read the mainstream websites, have a good, nutritious dinner, and then after you've eaten dinner, have a hot fudge sundae with Hannity or Maddow and enjoy yourself.
What I was going to say about this debate about Hannity, Maddow, Fox News is it's all spectacle. It's like I was telling Dana, I haven't watched any of the debates yet. I would have liked to have watched the Democrat to see Sanders, but you're a sports fan. It's monsters. But the pundits, quote unquote, sit around and basically they talk about the debate like it was a football game. There's no real discussion of issues affecting real people. It's like, who looked more presidential? Can you believe Hillary invoked, all this bullshit?
The problem is, university, and sports fans do it too, and so do music fans, and so do fans of particular television programs or movies. You spend time with people who obsess about the same things you do, and you assume the whole world cares about it as deeply and maniacally as you do.
Right.
So the kind of people who go on talk radio, like me, after a presidential debate, we play to each other and talk about, oh, did you notice that Bernie Sanders leaned on his elbow instead of putting his finger on his chin? We think that says something about his position on Iraq. I don't do that anymore because I got bored with it. But your point is the right one, Ed.
You do have a marble bust of David Gergen in your house when you go in like.
They have those? Please. And then I promise not to do it again.
I'd love you to.
We run a program here at USC where we train and then send our students out to speak to civics and government classes in the area, high schools and middle schools around USC.
Too serious.
I'll be quick. I'm kidding. In underrepresented communities. These are kids who, if they go to college, will be the first in their families to. If they vote, they will be the first in their families to. And the way we prepare our students to go back week after week after week is we say, look, save politics, save the candidates till the very end. Start with problems in the community.
Absolutely.
Talk about graffiti, talk about trash, talk about violence. Then, a week after that, then talk about issues in policy and legislation. And then only then get to the candidates and voting. And your point is exactly the right one, Ed, because when we leap to the end game, for us political crackheads who really obsess about this stuff, we're trivializing what politics is supposed to be about. Absolutely. The candidates are the means to the end, not the end. And we found the best way to engage these 12 and 13 and 16 and 17-year-olds is not talking about Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders or about Donald Trump and Jeb Bush, talking to them about what it takes to get their neighborhood cleaned up or safe enough so they can walk home after school in the winter.
How about jobs?
Exactly.
How about it's interesting to say that Liz Winstead, my old roommate, who co-created The Daily Show when it first started with the other dude before Jon Stewart.
Craig Kilborn. See, I've been preparing for this one.
Good for you.
How about that?
More than I know. And I was on that show. You'd think that I would have remembered the host.
Remembering Craig Kilborn? Well, that's a lot.
Remembering Craig Kilborn tonight at 5 o'clock.
That's an
Harry Reasoner.
That's my one-man show at the Avery Schreiber Theater in North Hollywood.
I've been by that theater. It doesn't look good.
She started an advisory group largely focused on women's rights and the encroachment of women's reproductive rights. And she does not deal with any politicians at all. It is all about the issue. And they don't deal with this person will save us and this person will save us. And that one of the misconceptions that people have is the false belief that leaders lead, they follow.
That's a good
Barack
point.
Obama I don't think he really evolved on gay marriage. I think he saw that the public tide shifted and he went with it. Lyndon Johnson didn't give, people demanded it. That's the way that real social change happens.
Right. Most people don't care about politics at all, but they care deeply about what politics can provide for them or prevent them from achieving.
Right.
And so I give your former colleague all the credit in the world. It's easy to scream and yell about candidates on both sides of the aisle, but if there is an issue or cause that's particularly important to a community, then finding a venue for that is exactly the right way to go. Ed, you're exactly right. It does end up in sport because if you are a cable network, Fox or MSNBC or CNN,
ratings
that has 28 hours a day to fill, do the math, then you got to have something to say. And analyzing trade policy doesn't bring in the ratings as much as screaming and yelling about how horrible the other side is.
Everywhere you go has what you need. The country has shrunk. These isolated pockets aren't so isolated anymore.
Right.
It's all of a piece.
Well, yeah, and I'm sure you were able to fit in down there, right? I mean, it's not like they
relatively.
we want Larry the Cable Guy or Homer and Jethro.
Yeah.
to go back.
And because that doesn't extend, that's not indicative of the South. That's indicative to how far are you from an urban center.
Right.
Because you go outside, you go to Hayward, California.
Go to Fontana.
Yeah, you're 25 minutes outside of San Francisco, and you might as well be anywhere.
Yeah. That's where all that's where my great aunt lives and my grandma lived in Hayward, and it was just like, the clear departure.
Right, and the cultural bias of those areas is why we're two countries. You know, we're two countries in one country. That's the difference between Democrats and Republicans. It doesn't matter what your economic interest is. And you really don't vote for anything. You vote against the people who you think look down their nose at you.
Yeah.
I think I have found in many conversations on Facebook with people that, like, when I will say like a snarky gun thing, as we record this, it is the high dudgeon of the we can't let any Syrian refugees in fervor. And as I would say, like, as God forbid, a non-white, non-Christian person walk into a movie theater with a gun and start shooting.
Right.
Yeah.
And then somebody will attack, libtard. And then you go back at them. And if you really stop and don't just trade insults, you're about, I find, 5 exchanges from like, I see that.
Right.
You just have to get out of your defensive crouch.
Yeah.
Stop screaming past each other, I think is really interesting.
It's interesting now because I feel like the internet has liberated us, but also incubated us into thinking that we're all on the same page as far as like a lot of like political beliefs go, or that we're all exposed to the same things. And so I'll walk into a Memphis. I did just an off bit that referenced the Trump campaign. And it would be interesting to see that they would be gung-ho with that. And then I would go to Birmingham, Alabama and do the Trump bit, and it would be like crickets. And it started to kind of make me comment, oh, is this Trump country? And then they would laugh at themselves in that moment. Yeah, like, I'm sorry.
The way I found doing that is that if you come out for him and then show the lunacy of it.
Yeah.
It's like, I look at Trump, I think it's great. Then they get out of the defensive crowd. What you said about the internet is true. You can surround yourself with like-minded people and really, really make the bubble that you live in concrete, which is not smart. You don't want to just talk to people who agree with you all the time.
Right.
Well, I was just thinking of Facebook, and the filters that they
I think it's called the Facebook. By the way.
Facebooks. Yeah. As my 87-year-old mother refers to the internet as just net. What are you doing, Mom? I'm on net.
I'm on net.
It's hip, but it's 1996 hip, which is still hip.
Yeah, for her,
it's hackers.
Yeah.
It would be funny if your mom had like social groups that were specifically designed to the concerns of people in their late 80s, but they have names like the social group is like where Cheryl's daughter works.
Yeah, right.
I love that.
It's just the only thing. I was like, if my mother was the first person on the moon, it would have been one small step for man. My knee really hurts today. Stiff when I woke up.
Yeah, my slipper just fell off.
Yeah. Have you gone to Shaw's? I need
Shaw's. I don't even know what Shaw's is, but it's
you don't need dip anymore. They put the dip flavors in the chips now.
Yeah.
What's going on the moon?
I know. Is this all on a voicemail? I love it.
This is all from the moon. As she's walking
it's from the moon. It's from the moon.
Still on the moon. We haven't left the moon, Julia.
Sorry. My mind was going a mile a minute.
Yeah, and you can just surround yourself with that, and it's in this other interview on this episode, as I was telling you earlier, we speak with Dan Schnur of the School for Public Policy at USC, and he says, Donald Trump won't get the nomination and he won't be the president. And that's just like if you drop a hammer on your toe, it's going to hurt. That's not a question to him. Mm-hmm. It's a matter of time and it's a matter of things. But like this is what's going to happen. It's going to be this or this or this. And, to my mother, that's a foreign concept that he's not going to be the new president because you're so in your bubble. And in the same way that people saw Obama and thought it was going to be this radical liberal presidency, and he's about as liberal as Dwight Eisenhower.
Is your mom a Trump backer?
Totally.
Oh. Yeah.
Oh.
But she was all she's you don't go to her for nuance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she was also my memory of my mother is her angrily tearing down my brother Kevin's Nixon Superbug poster the day Nixon resigned. She was a staunch Nixon.
What did that poster look like?
It was him stepping out of it was a famous poster. Everybody had it. There was two posters that everybody had back then. Nixon on the $3 bill and Superbug, which I think was like an Al Jaffe drawing or a Mort Drucker drawing of Nixon like Superman stepping out of a phone booth with headphones on, recording telephone conversations.
Oh, gosh.
And it had SB on his shirt, Superbug. Because he bugged everybody. That was
I never saw that poster.
Oh yeah,
and we're like the same age.
Yeah, I can show it.
I had the Easy Rider poster and the
Keep on Trucking.
What about Nixon bowling?
I have that photo in that other room.
Do you really?
Yeah, I love that photo.
Yeah, it's such a great photo.
I'm obsessed with Nixon. He's a truly Shakespearean character.
Oh yeah.
Have you been out to the Yorba Linda?
I'm ashamed to say I've not.
And you call yourself a obsessive.
I know. And Mike Murphy, has a friend of this podcast, has like, I can get you on the tour.
Oh boy!
If you want to go, we'll go. We'll find out. Yeah.
I went there once, but
I think there's some other stuff. One of the interesting things about the Nixon Library is they have like answers that he had to random questions, and then you get to ask the question and he answers you. It's like a weird like early video game. And I know one of them is like, "What's your favorite food?" And the answer is, "There's nothing like the taste of a char-grilled hamburger."
Gosh. Yeah, he's a fascinating sociopath. I really enjoy it.
He's King Lear. It's an amazing, and you'll see this with Trump. These people that are so driven, and then they attain the unattainable, and then the only person that they get to a point of so much accrued power, the only person that can destroy them is themselves, and that is the next logical step.
Yeah. I saw
That's
Nixon.
what happens. In real life?
In real life. My family used to vacation in Laguna Beach. This is when I was a little kid.
Yeah.
This obviously dates me. So this has been just prior to Watergate and all that. In other words, he was very beloved by many.
Right.
And he was coming into the Western White House at San Clemente. Yeah. And my folks are like, he's going to be flying in on the chopper and we're going to go down there and see this. And you will remember this. And I do, and we did. But it was just these throngs and throngs of people, and then he comes out and does the thing.
Yeah.
And so I have this snapshot image of that. And one of the people that was with us, this like teenage girl, went up actually shook his hand and came back like, I shook his hand. I'm never washing this hand again.
Gosh.
Like
David Kissinger, who works for Conoco, Conan's production company, he is the son of Henry Kissinger. And he has these stories about being a kid at the Western White House with his dad, like Saturday morning in the guest house, eating cereal, watching cartoons, and this guy in a suit walks up to the window. Hello.
Oh, God. Oh, no. How terrifying.
Yeah, he's been in a swimming pool with Richard Nixon.
wow.
He was in a swimming pool with Richard Nixon.
They say you shouldn't meet your heroes.
You shouldn't meet your heroes.
Wow.
And you can understand why he was bitter.
Yeah.
A lot of dead people voted in that election in 1960. What is the weirdest thing you saw in the South? I think it was someone told me this story. I gotta remember what it was. Like they were driving across country and they're driving in the South. They take a wrong corner late at night. It's like 5 guys in bib overalls with no shirts coming out of the forest and just staring them down. My fascination with the South is you get way, way out there and you get into some spooky shit.
I got a little lost, and what they have a lot out there are like NASA stuff. Like there's like just a random building in the middle of a field that like belongs to NASA. I remember where and I had like made a wrong turn and suddenly was like, facing this weird NASA compound and just felt very spooky, and everybody was kind of like shaking their heads like, you made a wrong turn, girl. That wasn't the weirdest thing that I saw, though. I really loved going to terrible museums that are really insensitive. So I went to the Titanic Experience Museum in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, which is for some reason there. And
why is the Titanic Museum in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee?
Because that's where Dollywood is. And
okay. Have you been to Birchwood, Tennessee?
No, where's that near?
I don't know, but when you go to Birchwood, you can attend the Church of God Holiness.
Cool.
Which is one of our preeminent snake handling churches.
Oh.
I really should have done more research on snake handling churches.
And that is where, if you're looking for weirdness, be it in the North or the South, you just need to follow your Bible. Get as Bible-y as you can, and that's where the weirdness happens. And so that's where I like to get off the beaten path and get to some snake handlers.
Yeah.
What's to eat? What's to drink?
Good food galore.
Quick as a wink.
And these signs shall follow them that believe. In my name they shall cast out devils. They shall speak with new tongues. They shall take up serpents. And if they drink any deadly thing, it shall not hurt them. They shall lay hands on the sick, and they shall recover. George Wendt Hensley introduced snake handling practices into the Church of God Holiness in Birchwood, Tennessee in 1910. He later traveled the Southeast promoting the practice, eventually resigning his ministry to start the first holiness movement church that required snake handling as evidence of salvation. If believers truly had the Holy Spirit within them, Hensley argued, they should be able to handle rattlesnakes and other venomous serpents. Snake handling as a test or a demonstration of faith became popular wherever Hensley traveled. He preached in small towns in Tennessee, Kentucky, the Carolinas, Virginia, Ohio, as far up as Indiana. Sister churches later sprang up throughout the Appalachian region. I know, shocking. Snake handlers do not worship snakes. Instead, they use the snakes to show non-Christians that God protects them from harm. In church services, when they feel the anointing of the Holy Spirit come upon them, these Christians reach into boxes, pick up venomous snakes, hold them up, and sling them around as they pray and sing and dance. What could go wrong? Snake handlers believe in a strict and literal interpretation of the Bible, and most Church of God Holiness churches are non-denominational, believing that denominations are human-made and carry the mark of the beast. See, it's not just a mistake or a bad thing, it's the devil. Those who die from snake bites are never criticized for a lack of adequate faith. It's believed that it was simply the deceased's time to die. So if you pick up a snake and you don't get bit, you're good. And if you do get bit and you die, you're good. So you might think, why bother with the whole snake? So, you win some, you lose some. At least 71 people have been killed by venomous snake bites during religious services in the United States. The first report of a death from a serpent bite occurred in 1922 at the Church of God Angel. Now, all of the Appalachian states except West Virginia outlawed the snake handling ritual when it first emerged. In July of 2008, 10 people were arrested and 125 venomous snakes were confiscated as part of an undercover sting operation. Pastor Gregory James Coots of the Full Gospel Tabernacle in Jesus' Name, or as we know it, the old FGTIJN, was arrested and 74 snakes were seized from his home as part of the sting. His son, James, was cited in 2013 for illegal possession and transportation of venomous snakes, when 3 rattlesnakes and 2 copperheads were discovered in his vehicle. Coots died from a snake bite on February 15, 2014, after refusing medical treatment. Snake handling evangelist John Wayne Pumpkin Brown died after being bitten by a timber rattlesnake at the Rock House Holiness Church in rural Alabama. His wife died 3 years earlier after being bitten in Kentucky. Another snake handler died in 2006 at a church in Kentucky. In 2012, Pentecostal pastor Mac Wolford died of a rattlesnake bite sustained while officiating at an outdoor service in West Virginia. His father died the same way some years earlier. And what, you may ask, of George Wendt Hensley, the founder of the modern snake handling movement? He died in 1955, peacefully and quietly, while sleeping. I'm kidding. He was bit by a snake and died. Now, there's no doubt that snake handlers are at the very far end of the freak scale when it comes to, let's say, pop religious culture. And I think we can all agree that their impact is limited. For impact, you can't beat a televangelist. And what's interesting is that one of the most nationally famous televangelists existed before television. I guess she was an audio evangelist, Aimee Semple McPherson. She owed her initial notoriety to traveling tent revival shows and later radio. And they made her one of the most famous people in America in the 1920s and 1930s. She was a bright and shining star, but as they say, what goes up must inevitably. Aimee Semple McPherson, or Sister Aimee, was the founder of what came to be known as the Foursquare Church. She was born Amy Elizabeth Kennedy on a farm in Salford, Ontario, Canada. As a child, she would play with her dolls by lining them up and preaching sermons to them. Later in high school, she became an impassioned opponent of the then new and exciting theory, evolution. She later met and married Robert Semple, a Pentecostal missionary. The two went on evangelistic tours, one in China, where they both caught malaria. Amy got pregnant. Robert got dysentery. Hopefully, these two incidents were not simultaneous. But long story short, he died and she headed back to America, a widowed mom at the age of 19. Amy moved, naturally, to Los Angeles, where with her mother, rented the 3,500-seat Philharmonic Auditorium and filled it, speaking in tongues, faith healing the crippled, and preaching the gospel. LA was ripe for someone like Amy. The population, 100,000 in 1910, had grown to 575,000 in just 10 years. And everyone was desperate for a miracle. Amy's church, then called the Angelus Temple, received 40 million visitors in its first year. And to be fair, they did a lot more than just speak in tongues and convince people to throw away their crutches. When an earthquake ravaged Santa Barbara in 1925, the Angelus Temple led the relief efforts, making 2 trips up to the damaged city before the Red Cross ever showed up. Despite being based in Hollywood, Amy condemned show business and theatrical flair, but used them nonetheless, turning her sermons into elaborate productions. Her touring shows outdrew other contemporary draws like Houdini, Teddy Roosevelt, and even P.T. Barnum. One revival show in San Diego drew 30,000 people. She was one of the most photographed individuals of her day, and her voice was one of the most recognized in the United States. Now, eventually, the Angelus Temple evolved into its own denomination, the International Church of the Foursquare Gospel. And Aimee Semple McPherson went from being a famous evangelist to an institution. And then, on May 18th, 1926, Sister Amy went with her secretary to Ocean Park Beach in Venice, California, where, not long after arriving, she vanished. Had she been kidnapped? Had she drowned? The media and the public lapsed into a frenzy. The Church of the Foursquare Gospel was inundated with ransom notes. All were found to be hoaxes. Semple's mother, who still helped administer the church, was preparing for a memorial service when she got a phone call from Douglas, Arizona. It seems that while on the beach, McPherson was approached by a young couple who wanted her to pray with them for the health of their sick child. She was taken to their car where she was shoved in, chloroformed, and driven to a shack in the desert. She eventually escaped and, using the mountains as a guide, walked 20 miles over 13 hours in old-timey shoes, eventually reaching the town of Agua Prieta in Sonora, Mexico. Her followers, who believed her to be dead, were euphoric at her miraculous return. When her train pulled into LA's Union Station, she was greeted by a crowd between 30 and 50,000 people. And this, to the city of Los Angeles and the churches and religious organizations within the city of Los Angeles, was all getting to be a bit much. Amy's staunch anti-evolutionary stance, bellowing to a massive throng, waving a white Bible, was beginning to become a bit of an embarrassment to the Chamber of Commerce, which was dedicated to painting Los Angeles as the hometown of America's bright and shiny future, trucked in palm trees and all. Amy began to create enemies in certain circles, certain legal circles, and this is where the whole kidnapping deal was considered to be a publicity stunt. And as it goes in the world that once they build you up, there's nothing left to do but tear you down, speculation began in the press that maybe, just maybe, the whole time she was supposedly trekking through the Mexican desert in old-timey shoes, she was really just shacked up with Ken Ormiston, an ex-employee. A grand jury was announced. Reporting a false kidnapping is, after all, a crime. The prosecution tried to break her story, but eventually failed. Its case plagued by credibility issues. That said, the damage was done, and the torrents of negative and speculative publicity alone were enough to bring Amy McPherson back to earth. And after that, the dam broke, and everyone and their uncle came forth with stories of illicit affairs with Sister Amy, one famously by none other than Milton Berle. None of them, it should be said, were ever proven. And then, it was death of 1,000 cuts. Accusations, lawsuits, counter-lawsuits, lawsuits of allegations of counter-lawsuits. Sister Amy finally really died of what was believed to be an accidental overdose of sleeping pills. 45,000 people lined up to say goodbye to the farm girl from Ontario. In retrospect, Amy McPherson's private persona did not drastically differ from her public one. Millions of dollars passed through her hands, but when she died, her personal estate amounted to a mere $10,000. The Foursquare Gospel Church continues to this day, although bereft of Sister Amy. That said, the cult of personality that Amy developed would be copied, co-opted, and perverted in the future, becoming, well, just plain cults. And that's when things get really creepy. And we'll deal with that later in this very broadcast. And I know I said broadcast, not podcast. I know I said that. I did that on purpose.
Welcome to Political Talk with two guys from Boston. A working man's look at the socio-political issues of our day. And now, Political Talk with two guys from Boston.
This is Political Talk with two guys from Boston. I'm Johnny Condon.
Robbie Sullivan here.
Oh, it's the holidays are upon us.
You know, at first I dread it, but right now I'm getting in a little bit of the spirit.
Really?
Yeah.
It's always stressful. I don't know what it is, if it's our culture or the time.
Yeah.
But now every Thanksgiving somebody comes out.
Oh, my God, I know it. It's so true. And sometimes it's right at the table and you can see it in their eyes. They're about to say something.
Yeah.
I get some other snack.
It's like, he's going to jump.
Yeah,
he's going to do it.
He's going to jump the shack.
Yeah. Every time somebody taps a fork to a glass, I clench up.
Yeah, because you know something's coming. Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
I love listening to the aunts talk about it over when they're making stuffing in the morning. I'm very nervous. I think this is the year Paulie's going to announce that he's queer.
I don't mind so much for him. It's me. I don't feel comfortable with his life.
I love when older people are faced with modern stuff.
Yeah.
And they can't be weird about it like they used to be.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
They have to, I don't mind that Polly's queer.
Yeah.
He's just such a woman about it.
Yeah. I can't help but wonder, will he be happy when he's 70?
But you know how...
Have you heard him say that?
Oh, yeah. I worry
it's such a weird one for me. Like, I'm just worried when they were an old man. No, what are you talking about? What if they had someone that loved them?
If it's a social thing, they say it louder. If it's a religious thing, they say it softer. It's like, I don't mind that Polly is queer, but his boyfriend is Jewish.
Oh, is he? Yeah, that's perfect. It's the other thing that gets whispered.
Yeah. I love how they keep track of it. Well, I don't mind it, but I'm wondering if he goes out to those clubs, he might dance with a black.
Did you know that his mother was a Lutheran? It's like, was she really a Lutheran? Yeah, it's sad in some ways.
My mother once said, his friend, I don't know the name of any blacks.
I can't pronounce their names. It goes right out of my head. Denzel something.
There was a kid, and my grandmother, there was a kid on her block when she was little who was, I don't know what you call it now, he was retarded, but I mentally disabled.
Some people still say it.
Cloud brain, I don't know what they're called now. Cotton candy people, rainbow smiles.
Yeah,
whatever
that's nice.
Human unicorn.
I never heard that.
Whatever they call it, God love him. And his name was JoJo.
Okay.
And so my grandmother, until a dying day, called mentally handicapped people JoJo boys.
They were all JoJo.
JoJo boys and JoJo girls. Like you'd flip the channel and they'd be the Special Olympics would be on and they're like, oh, it's the JoJo boys and the JoJo girls.
Oh, it's a familial thing. She knew JoJo. And now they're all JoJo to me.
All JoJo boys. Oh, he's a JoJo boy. God bless him.
Isn't that nice for JoJo too? Remembered. We had the Charles River Workshop. I don't know if you ever heard of that, over in Newton Lower Falls or wherever.
Yeah.
And my mother would have someone over for Thanksgiving. We'd have a handicap or a challenge, a retard. But they would come for the meal and they would teach us all something.
Sure,
usually about patience.
Yes.
Because, they're very lovely.
Well, here's the thing. They're much better than normal.
They're way better than normal.
Way better than normal.
Yeah, because they don't bring the shit up that every other normal person brings up. They're not even concerned with whether or not Ricky's gay.
Yeah. Here's the thing.
Why do you hate him, John?
He's a chihuahua and it's always, he pees everywhere, he barks everywhere.
Yeah.
He's like the Joker. He's just an anarchist.
They're like squeak toys for bigger dogs.
Yeah, but this dog, literally, it's like there's only two things I don't want you to do: piss in the house and bark all the time. And that's what he does. And I know he only does it to bother.
Oh yeah, we had to take him in the truck that day.
I know he does it to bother me. I know that in his mind, I know supposedly his mind is like pet, food, sleep. But I know that they're not smart.
Yeah,
but I can't stop projecting that. No, he's planning this. He's laughing at me. I lie awake at night. He's laughing at me.
I do think in some ways he's mocking you.
I do too. He is like the Joker mocks Batman. And
remember we had to take him in the truck that day, and he was just sliding along the back sort of silently, and then he'd look up at you, and he'd slide back the other way. I think all that was manipulative.
Oh yeah, I do too. He's playing me like a harp.
Totally.
So I park. I wanted to go to Emac and Bolio's. I wanted to get a good ice cream.
Yeah.
And I park, and there's a Barnes & Noble right next to it because I'm in Saugus.
Sure. They don't fold the stuff into the ice cream there like they do at Cold Stone, do they?
No.
Yeah, I prefer it like that.
It's chunky.
Oh, nice.
So I park the truck, and there's a van right in front of me. And I park the truck, and I get out of the truck. It's a passenger van, and the door opens, and like 12 mentally handicapped kids get out of the van.
Oh.
They're going to the bookstore.
Oh, that's nice.
With their whatever.
Yeah.
And
the docent.
Yeah. And the dog gets up on the passenger side window and starts barking.
Yeah.
And they are delighted. And so they all come over. So I open the door, and the dog is there, and all the mentally handicapped people are playing with the dog.
Yeah.
And he's putting it on for me, like he's up on his hind legs, he's wagging his tail, and he's looking at me, and like he almost winked. It's like, oh yeah, but I'll get you later. But here's the deal. So they're all talking, and they're lovely, and they're having a wonderful, they're petting the dog, and they love the dog. If 12 non-mentally handicapped people got out of a van and started walking towards your truck, you'd shit yourself.
Leave my dog alone.
Yeah.
You
what are
weirdos.
they? Oh, they're pod people. Oh, here they come. I'm next. I'm next.
They're going to eat my dog.
Yeah, but no, they were lovely. It was.
Well, there's only two vibrations in this life, right, Johnny? Fear and love. And those people don't have the fear.
No, they don't have it.
They really don't. They're just in love with us. It's a lovely thing. It's like an unconditional love coming from someone.
You know, now that you say that, I wonder if in heaven they're just laughing at us.
Oh, yeah. They
probably look at us with all of our
they're
worries.
Probably sitting at the good table with the good food.
I wonder, because, you know, they get a pretty good life.
Yeah.
And I wonder if when it's just them,
yeah,
if they don't laugh their asses off it. Look at those assholes with their fucking
you know how they
calendars, late for work,
yeah,
late for this.
You know they say if you have a lack of one sense, you're stronger in some other area?
Yeah.
Maybe psychically they're fucking whiz kids.
Oh, and they just think that we're just the biggest fucking joke.
We're a joke, yeah. We're concerned with things that really aren't. They don't matter at the next level.
Yeah.
The game from here gets better.
I'm rethinking.
But everyone thinks it's over.
I'm rethinking everything now.
I'm going to get you some Hoopak Chopra or some shit.
Oh, those asses.
Is it Hoopak?
Political Talk with two guys from Boston.
And now, on with the show.
When does the public turn on the NRA? It's one of two things. God forbid some psycho is going to shoot up a private school in Northern Virginia and some big-name senators are going to lose some family, and then something might happen. Or we're going to wait until the Scotch-Irish, blue-eyed devil European gun tradition is such a minority in this country with the changing of demographics that the politicians by that time will reflect the change in our population, and there won't be that firewall of you can't go near them.
Here's the challenge on the issue of guns.
By the way, when I had 6 rifles in my bedroom as a child, that's not a lot.
Were they yours?
They were my father's and my brother's. My room happened to be the room that the gun cabinet was in because it was a small
house. That would
house.
explain a lot.
We never had a gun in our house, but there was a lot of hate.
Okay. Well, good thing there weren't any guns then.
But I grew up, I grew up eyeball deep in guns and hunting culture, and I don't do it, but I get it.
The challenge on guns is not public opinion, which is overwhelmingly in favor of universal background checks, more stringent controls. But the key is when you ask people to rank the most important issue to them, among Democratic primary voters, gun control ranks 10th on the most important issues to them.
Republican primary voters, it's second?
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So it goes back to what I was saying earlier, a small number of people on either side of an issue who care deeply about it. You were talking about Bill Clinton earlier, and one of you called him a moderate Republican. Here's why Bill Clinton was so effective at what he did. His policy recommendations on guns are virtually indistinguishable from those of Barack Obama. But here's what Bill Clinton said to a Democratic National Committee audience a few years ago when this issue came up. He said, I agree with you on every single thing you're talking about, but let me tell you what my friends in Arkansas hear when you talk about this issue. They hear you calling them dumb and stupid and backward and illiterate and not worthy of your contempt. If we want to move forward on this issue, we've got to be able to find a way to address people who disagree with us. I'm paraphrasing here, obviously, not as crazy or as evil, but as reasonable people who happen to have come to a different conclusion than we have. And at that point, then maybe we can find the space within the 40-yard lines. But I think it's exactly the right one. And having them stand up before the DNC and say, don't treat people who disagree with you as cretins and subhuman, and your chances of getting them to compromise with you become much greater.
Again, my brothers, I am of these people. I know how they think. They see Al Gore, they see John Kerry as the guy that cuts them off on the turnpike going to Cambridge. Like, he has no regard for them at all. Bill Clinton was Bubba, was his nickname. Like, I know that guy. I can deal with that guy.
That mutual contempt that characterizes politics is what keeps us from populating that space in between the 40-yard line.
I think that there is room to move on gun legislation in a way that doesn't destroy the intent of the Second Amendment. But to hear the adherents of that, you would think that they were under siege. And there is the small minority of
gun
people.
Owners?
Yeah. There's a small minority of very loud people.
On every issue.
Right. But in the gun one, the one is you get down to the people that we need guns because the army's going to come and take them. And I have to defend myself from the army. But then when you press them on that, they go, well, I happen to also know that the army would never take place in a civilian disarmament. Oh, so then you don't need the gun.
But if you find the freakiest, most insane voices in either party, in either end zone, you can find a very, very comforting excuse not to work with the other side.
Yeah, exactly.
And so the key is say, all right, who are the people on the other side who I can work with to some degree? Right. And that's what the Clintons and the Reagans were able to do during their presidencies. You realize, I'm not going to get everything I want. How can I get something in exchange for giving something to the other side?
Exactly. And the problem is, again, it's the people that are the loudest are the ones that take up all the air in the room.
And by the way, it's not just the loudest. They're the most committed. They're the ones who are sitting year-round, odd-numbered years. They're the ones in basements stuffing envelopes and making calls and walking door to door. If you are a truly committed progressive or an equally truly committed conservative, you don't stop in odd-numbered years. You know, there's an old saying in politics, there's no such thing as a raging moderate. I'd like to think that for the most part, almost by definition, the passion comes from the extremes, and so they tend to have a disproportionate sway over the debate.
Is that what ends the candidacies of people like Trump, Fiorina, Ben Carson, the mass swiveling of heads when the interest towards the presidential election reaches the average guy?
That's exactly right. Let's take Marco Rubio for a second. Marco Rubio, a few years ago, was part of the Senate Gang of Eight that passed comprehensive immigration reform, proposing not just a pathway to permanent legal status, but a pathway to citizenship. If Marco Rubio is not the Republican nominee for president next year, it will be because he dared to work with the other side of the aisle.
Right.
And I would suggest to you that even though Secretary Clinton's place in the Democratic field is much, 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 much more solid than any Republicans, she felt vulnerable enough that on issues like Keystone, on issues like the Trans-Pacific Pact, on issues like charter schools, to rush away from the center in order to shore up her base, because she and the people around her knew that she could not afford to leave herself vulnerable to a Sanders, or at that point to a Biden challenge. So your point is exactly right. Again, from a pure cost benefit standpoint, if you are an ambitious politician in either party, you hug your base as hard as you can in the primary, and then you find a way to abandon them in the general and rush as quickly as you can to the center.
The thing that Reagan did and the thing that Clinton did in their willingness to work with the other side is also, that's now considered the venal sin.
Precisely.
How dare you?
Why has it gotten so polarized?
Well, politics has always been polarized, but until recently, leaders on both sides have been able to overcome that bitterness and that partisanship in order to get things done when they needed to.
Not anymore.
We talked earlier about how the Republicans impeached Clinton, so it's not like his presidency was this wonderful era of bipartisanship.
No, they hated him from day one.
But they worked with him on free trade. They worked with him on welfare reform. They worked with him on tax and economic policy. So 20 years ago, as opposed to now, you could overcome that bitterness and that hyperpolarization to get things done when they needed to.
But free trade and welfare reform were right. You know, the NAFTA agreement wound up just being horrific for the American worker.
But by that
welfare reform, horrific for the poor.
And this is where it gets challenging. By that definition, 70 to 75% of Americans are right-wing if you ask them the question on trade. Similarly, if you ask people the questions on protecting legal abortion rights, that would mean, according to some, that 75% of Americans are crazed leftists. I think when overwhelming majorities of Americans support something, dismissing it on ideological grounds becomes more difficult. And I'm not picking on you, Ed, because you have a principled opposition to expanded trade, and I respect that. I don't agree with it, but I respect it. But when you see overwhelming majorities of the American public, whether it's on trade or guns, supporting a certain argument, simply saying that's corporate conservatism or that's crazed liberalism, is just not going to get you very far. So we can come back some other day and have a substantive conversation on trade. And I'll explain to you why I'm right and you're wrong.
I was in Texas. I was in Austin, Texas, doing a radio show in the morning, plugging a gig. And Austin's a pretty cosmopolitan place. Mm-hmm. You know, Austin's pretty groovy. Although my first night in Austin, somebody was shot about 20 feet outside of my hotel room.
Oh, no.
And I did the smart thing of affixing the chain to the door.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now I'm safe.
That bulletproof chain.
Yeah. And when I called, I said, I think someone just got shot. And they went, no, we have a wedding here. It was a firework. Call her back. Excuse me. No, somebody got shot. And then and the respect was, so I went down the next morning. Was that gunfire? Yeah, it was a wedding.
Oh, boy.
Just a wedding. Over-enthusiast.
Yeah.
Over-enthusiast. But I'm in this radio station in Austin, Texas, and they have some people coming, some hill people, which are people that live outside the city in hill country. Mm-hmm. And they have a rattlesnake ranch I don't know how they hurt him.
Yeah.
But I want to see it.
Yeah.
And so I am phobic of snakes.
Yeah.
I do not like me some snakes.
Have you seen snake handling? Have you witnessed this?
I have on the TV.
Oh, but I mean, not in the flesh.
No. Yeah. But, and I have no desire to be that close to snakes ever.
Yeah.
And I've seen, clearly I've seen snakes. And it's just, I was up in Ojai, California, walking through a field, and a king snake just went like 6 feet in front of me.
I was up in,
and I just stopped.
Yeah.
And those things are massive.
Yeah.
And they're, by the way, super fine.
They don't
bother you at all.
I
think they're also called gopher snakes.
I was up hiking around Ojai and came face to face with about a 5-foot rattlesnake.
Yeah, there's a lot. It's just for whatever reason, your station, and they say, so these guys are going to come in. They brought some snakes. Do you want to be in here? Do you want to stay? And I go, cause I'm in show business.
Mm-hmm.
Like, well, let me see if they're cool. And if they're cool,
I love that if you're in show business, that it goes snakes.
Let me read them my credits.
But it's like, do you want to stay on the radio?
Yeah.
Well, maybe.
But they're part of show business.
Yeah.
Snakes are.
So I literally walk into the green room. These guys right out of Central Casting, and this guy's holding a rattler, and the first thing he does is stick it in my face.
Oh no!
Just like
that's kooky.
Yeah.
And I was just like, later.
Yeah.
in the car. No goodbye. You go down the south and you go out into the backwoods and you find yourself some snake handlers.
Mm-hmm.
In Los Angeles, in the history of Los Angeles, all the weird shit happened right here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just in an anonymous house in the Hollywood Hills. Oh yeah, there's a religious cult that operates out of that house.
Yeah.
Big cults that came to L.A.
Oh, the Dodgers.
That is a bit of a cult.
But there were so many little minor cults and things going on. The Theosophical Society too was witches in Ojai.
What was the witch cult in Ojai?
The witch cult?
Yeah. What was the witch deal that you were talking about?
I don't know. Were you talking about the Theosophical thing?
Yeah. What is the?
Oh, that's not a witch thing. And I couldn't outline their whole platform for you. But there's a place up there called the Crotona Institute that's actually very, very cool. And it's been there, it's a mission style, Spanish style building. They've got a great library open to the public with every book on any kind of religion, in mysticism and occult and all that stuff, Crowley, all that.
Right.
And you can just walk into this old, beautiful old building on these beautiful grounds and meditate on devil worship or whatever.
That's bad. Have you ever seen the film Haxan?
No.
Haxan? No.
It is a 1920s film about witchcraft. And,
no way.
But it's a fictitious film, but the imagery of it, it's super, super creepy.
Yeah.
And supposedly, I'm going to get this wrong, but it is somehow related to this. The whole theory of where witches riding a broom came on was there was some sort of ointment or something that would, like a medicinal ointment that would make you hallucinate. But you couldn't eat it. So they would put it on a broomstick and insert it. And that is how they ingested the drug.
Oh, God. Old pharmaceutical stuff.
Hence the term flying on a broomstick.
Wow. Ooh. And they still use that method in women's prisons, I think.
Well, it's butt chugging booze is popular in the font of all great shit American fraternity culture.
Oh, yeah. Butt chugging booze.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gosh, when you dive into, there was a pharmaceutical museum.
From Ojai to butt chugging booze.
I know.
In 3 moves.
Yeah.
When you dive into the history of pharmaceuticals, you just get deeper and deeper into that kind of shit. There's a museum just for that kind of stuff in New Orleans, which feels appropriate. It's like right next to a voodoo museum.
Right.
So,
Did you go to it?
Yeah. It's in the French Quarter. And yeah, everything's like within a block of each other. And yeah, New Orleans in general is just a spooky city. But
now, when I think of New Orleans, I think that it was one of the places where they shot Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. Is New Orleans famous for anything else?
I think that there was like one.
Didn't it rain there once?
It rained there once, I think.
What was the pharmaceutical museum like? What?
It was just a lot of like. I mean, you get your leeches, you get your this and that. Treating women for hysteria with like vibrators, stuff like that. But
what?
Then, oh yeah. You didn't know that?
Back up.
That's like some Ryan Murphy right now. His ears are ringing. He's like going to write that into American Horror Story.
Yeah.
They used to treat women for hysteria by giving them vibrators and giving them some time to themselves. And they would deal with it. Yeah, and it works to this day.
Very effective.
At the Raymond Chandler Institute, they just slapped them, and then they would kiss you, and they were better.
And they would say thank you. That's what fainting couches were for. After you get slapped by a man,
hit the couch.
Yeah,
I didn't know that was true.
Yeah,
so hysteria was you needed to have
they have some really
sexual
elaborate
fulfillment tools.
You were talking too much. That's what they would diagnose you with hysteria. I don't know.
Well, there's a fine line between back in the day of hysteria and possession. You know? And both could be cured with a good vibrator.
Yeah. But that, and then also
it made The Exorcist a 32-minute movie.
Yeah.
Give her this, close the door, she'll be fine in 20 minutes.
I think you only need 32 minutes of The Exorcist, to be honest. They would do that, and then you'd see other like things that are kind of weird. They're using bug extracts to like put into pills and stuff like that, or stuff that feels like so crazy now looking back in like the 1930s, 1940s, that they would recommend, these for children to consume, stuff like that. And also, fun things like, did you know marshmallows used to be used for curing a sore throat? That's what you can still use them for today.
Really?
I'm a font of pointless
information.
Why?
What quality does a marshmallow possess that would aid in sore throat curage?
Something about the extract of whatever plant the marshmallow.
Oh, the marsh.
The marsh.
The marsh water that comes out.
The marsh water.
In the old days.
There's something about that somehow going down your throat, it kind of soothes it. I was also fascinated by this because in the middle of my tour, I got bronchitis and I had to cancel a couple dates. So I was just like, running around the city trying to find.
Did you go to the doctor?
I did.
And what did the doctor say? Is that how you get diagnosed? Because I've had 2 throat surgeries in my life. I had polyps. And, if you're a comedian and you can't talk, it's not only temporarily inconvenient.
Yeah.
It has major life. It's like, if I don't master this, I'm fucked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everything was in a panic state after I first lost my voice.
You had hysteria.
I had hysteria.
Is that why you went to that?
I went to a special doctor before I went to the real doctor.
Getting into an ungentlemanly area.
Down to the novelty store.
Let's back out of this.
Yeah.
Back out of this like a cat on a diving board.
I went to the doctor, and at first they said that it was. I went to just like a free clinic. I think in Alabama. Come on. And they just said to like wait it out, that it was just really swollen.
What was wrong with you? Were you like losing your voice?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of exactly what my voice was just gone. It cracked in the middle of my set in Knoxville, like on stage, toward the end. And the next morning, my throat was completely swollen. I couldn't really speak, and then I completely lost it. And then I happened to have all my sets for the remainder of the tour in smoky bars.
Yeah, that happens.
Yeah, which is like another way that the South is very, very different from LA. So
you should just, if you do a similar tour again, you should just a couple weeks prior, just start smoking.
I should. And there was a moment where my voice was just starting to come back. I'm not proud of this, but I was in Huntsville, Alabama, and my friend Scott had organized a show. I saw him in the parking lot. I was like walking out, feeling good. My voice was coming back, and I went, "Hey, buddy, do they allow smoking inside, perchance?" And he was like, "Oh, yeah." And I just burst into tears. And we don't know each other that well. So he was just awkwardly like, you could go through the back door. And so
I can remember in my lifetime, like people smoking on airplanes.
Oh, me too.
It's just so.
Did you ever sit in the first non-smoking?
But but smoking sections were a new thing. It used to be just like you get on the plane and that was the smoking section. Then sometime, I think in the 70s, I'm guessing, but it was like, all right, let's have a section for people who don't smoke. Like that's going to help.
Oh, yeah, I know. Like there's some sort of barrier. Yeah.
And then you would walk into the smoking section, and it was like Victorian London. Like, you couldn't see.
I know. It's impossible to fathom now, because just lighting up, if one of us lit up one cigarette right here and just did 2 puffs, it would just be so pervasive.
Yeah,
and oh my God.
Yeah.
No, I remember working in clubs in Boston when I was starting out, and literally would have to put my clothes on the balcony of my apartment just to air them out. It was just so brutal.
Yeah, and I'm just now remembering that when I did that cigar store in Nashville, it was in the middle of all that. Like, my voice was starting to come back, and I just I told them that I would try to get through my set, but we don't know what would happen. And everyone's smoking around me. I'm getting through half my set, and I just feel my throat getting more and more inflamed. And so I, in the middle of my set, bolt out, stretch the microphone cord as far as I can, and did the rest of my set from the parking lot. And everyone gathered around the door and watched me do my set.
That's fascinating.
That's good.
Yeah. So I tried to figure it out.
Were they smoking in the parking lot?
They were.
Yeah, no. I remember one of the things when you can't talk, I go into a coffee shop with a note. And I had surgery, so I couldn't talk for, I think, a couple weeks, 2-3 weeks. You just don't use your voice. Let it heal.
I was using my iPhone, and I got out of a speeding ticket in Tennessee, which is accidentally brilliant because I got pulled over. My voice was starting to come back, but I was speeding. I was going 90 trying to get to Memphis. And this guy pulled me over, and I rolled down the window and just mimed that I couldn't talk, that I was, I don't know what, here's my license. And he took pity on me.
I'm pretty. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it was that too. But I was like, oh yeah, when you get, pulled over anywhere, just pretend you're mute. Yeah. And they love it.
What kind of glasses are them? Reading glasses? No. Wow, I remember going in a coffee shop and with a note that said I lost my voice, I can't speak, but I can hear fine. Can I have a latte? And they were like, do you want No, I'm not deaf. I'm not mentally disabled.
I got that so many times. I was just like,
should the spoon not be sharp? No, it'll be fine. Let's talk about cults. The People's Temple was formed in Indianapolis, Indiana during the mid-1950s, practicing what it called apostolic socialism. They did not believe in integration, so the good people in Indiana in the 1950s said, "Out of here." They moved to California, opening churches in the San Fernando Valley and in San Francisco. The People's Temple became increasingly political once ensconced in the Bay Area. After their work helped Mayor George Moscone get elected, the Temple's leader, one Jim Jones, was made chairman of the San Francisco Housing Authority Commission. Jones enjoyed public support and contact with some of the highest-level politicians in the United States. For example, he met with Vice President Walter Mondale, First Lady Rosalind Carter, and Governor Jerry Brown several times. But the People's Temple didn't quite smell right. And when the San Francisco Examiner began a series of investigative articles, accompanied by the high-profile defection of some high-level members, the People's Temple once again picked up stakes and moved, this time to French Guiana. The theory being Jones liked the loosey-goosey extradition laws with the United States, and he himself saw the weak political leadership there and thought it would allow him a swift and effortless rise to power and control. In a sign of Jones' growing megalomania, he named the People's Temple's commune Jonestown. The original idea was for Jonestown to become a socialist utopia. The members of the commune worked tirelessly to build and maintain Jonestown. Jones adopted the North Korean system of 8 hours a day of daily work, followed by 8 hours a day of study. This also comported with the temple's practice of gradually subjecting its followers to sophisticated mind control and behavior modification techniques, borrowed from North Korea and Maoist China. Jones grew predictably paranoid and began screening films like Day of the Jackal and The Parallax View, growing livid when the audience did not derive the same message that he did. Some members thought this wasn't too cool and considered escaping. Bad move. Many were caught and forcibly administered drugs such as Thorazine, sodium pentothal, and chloral hydrate. Armed guards patrolled the area day and night to enforce Jonestown's rules. The commune contained no dedicated prison, but various forms of punishment were used against members considered to have serious disciplinary problems. Methods included imprisonment in a 6-foot plywood box and forcing children to spend the night at the bottom of a well, sometimes upside down. This became known as the torture hole. In September 1977, former temple members battled in court to produce an order for the return of their 5-year-old son. Fear of being held in contempt of the order caused Jim Jones, whose mental state was deteriorating rapidly. It caused him to fake a sniper attack upon himself, and thus began his series of, quote, white nights, or what he called our 6-day siege. He faked a siege of the compound, basically telling the members that the commune was under attack, even though they really weren't. Back in America, parents of the commune members petitioned their congressman to investigate Jonestown. Along this time, Jim Jones got a jeweler's license. So, well, one thing you can do with a jeweler's license is buy cyanide to clean gold. On November 14th, Congressman Leo Ryan flew to Guyana with a delegation of reporters. After a tense visit, several members of Jonestown wished to defect and asked to be processed back for a return to the United States. As the Ryan delegation set about returning, they were ambushed at the airstrip by soldiers from the People's Temple Commune. Jones convinced his remaining followers that they were under attack and urged them to commit revolutionary suicide. A total of 909 people died, all but 2 from cyanide poisoning. Jones took the Hitler route and blew his brains out. The Jonestown Massacre vaulted public awareness and paranoia about religious cults into the stratosphere here into the United States. One of the mechanisms employed to fight cults and their nefarious methods was the Cult Awareness Network. The Cult Awareness Network, or CAN, was an organization created by a deprogrammer named Ted Patrick that provided information on groups that it considered to be cults, as well as support and referrals to deprogrammers to the family members of people suspected of being caught in them. One of the first directors of the Cult Awareness Network was Patricia Ryan, the daughter of Congressman Leo Ryan. The Cult Awareness Network worked diligently to identify and expose religious cults it classified as destructive, those that employed mind control techniques and exerted an undue personal and or financial burden upon its members. One organization that did not appreciate the Cult Awareness Network was the Church of Scientology, who characterized it as a hate group. In 1990, a woman posing as a volunteer was later revealed to have been sent by the Church of Scientology as a deep undercover agent within the Cult Awareness Network. Now, the Cult Awareness Network had left itself open. Deprogrammers might have good intentions, but their methods of pulling people out of cults often involve kidnapping and unlawful detention, which, whether you're crazy or not, violates your civil rights. In 1991, over 50 Scientologists from across the United States filed civil suits against the Cult Awareness Network, many of whom used the same claims word for word and all worked through the same law office. In addition, Scientologists filed dozens of discrimination complaints. The Cult Awareness Network, which ran a budget of about $300,000 a year, was unable to cope with this amount of legislation. The Cult Awareness Network, which ran on a budget of about $300,000 a year, was unable to cope with this amount of litigation. Eventually, the Cult Awareness Network filed for bankruptcy. To add to the confusion, the Church of Scientology then opened the new Cult Awareness Network. So now, if you have concerns about a family member you think might have joined a cult, or a loved one you feel may have fallen into the clutches of a disreputable religious organization, you can call the new Cult Awareness Network and speak directly to a Scientologist. All, I may add, perfectly legally. Now, how is it that we got on this subject anyway? Oh yeah, snakes. Funny. Casper is an online retailer of premium mattresses for a fraction of the average price. Casper is revolutionizing the mattress industry by cutting the cost of dealing with resellers and showrooms and passing that savings directly onto the consumer. They make an obsessively engineered mattress at a shockingly fair price. Mattresses can often cost well over $1,500, but Casper mattresses cost just $500 for a twin-size mattress and $950 for a king-size mattress. Casper mattresses have just the right sink, just the right bounce. Two technologies, latex foam and memory foam, come together for a better night and a brighter day. And all Casper mattresses are made here in the United States of America. They have a risk-free trial and return policy. Try sleeping on a Casper mattress for 100 days with free delivery and painless returns. Get $50 towards any mattress purchase by visiting Casper.com/Dana and using the promo code Dana. And what better to do than when lying in bed than to put on a Bevilacqua heating and air conditioning t-shirt and listen to one of my CDs. Please visit our store at comedyfilmnerds.com. Lastly, while doing your holiday shopping, please keep us in mind. And when you visit Amazon, why not do it through danagould.com? You get what you want, and for not 1 penny more, we get a little something to keep the lights on and pay the good people who work here at the show. I kid you not. danagould.com. And then click on our Amazon banner, and it's just that easy. You can also contribute to the show on our main page, and please visit my live appearance page for info and ticket links on all of my upcoming shows. Sincerely, thank you.
Make sure you get yours and enjoy it now.
A lot of jobs are going overseas due to NAFTA or globalization.
Well, and this gets back to the point I was making about Sanders. You're a principled progressive. Like many principled progressive, I'm guessing, you had very high hopes for candidate Obama when he was elected president.
That's right. And I was bitterly disappointed
on any number of issues. Mm-hmm. And Bernie Sanders,
I'm genuinely surprised he's still alive.
Barack Obama or Ed?
Both.
Okay. One is
I have a bad eating history.
I don't agree with him. That doesn't mean I want to hurt him.
One is the victory of the Secret Service, and one is a victory for insulin.
I'm over my head here.
Not at all.
See, I think that Obama is the Adlai Stevenson presidency that we were denied in the 50s.
You say that with some regret.
Well, I do.
Adlai lost to who again?
Eisenhower.
Twice. I think the president that he lines up with the most is Eisenhower. He's incredible.
Who, by the way, at the end of his last term, talked about the military-industrial complex.
Oh, yeah.
He was like, oh, my God, look at what we have in this country.
Although, to be fair, he was not speaking out against the military or against a significant investment in the U.S.'s international military presence.
The combination.
Precisely.
Yeah. So, and he also predicted Parliament Funkadelic, which not a lot of people know.
Which he doesn't get nearly enough credit for. Patton and Marshall fought him on that tooth and nail, but he knew.
Beware the military-industrial complex, and keep your eye on this Bootsy Collins.
But, Senator Robert Taft of Ohio.
I think that he lines up a lot like incredibly moderate, incredibly cautious, incredibly aware that he is not the president of his base, that he is the president of a very diverse nation.
And that's a mixed blessing.
I agree completely. I don't necessarily – I think people need a leader that will drag them into directions that they maybe don't want to go.
Well, that gets back to your point about leadership.
Yeah.
Leadership, by definition, is convincing people to do something that they would not have done on their own.
Right.
Do we have it anymore? Do we have that?
So every time I've gotten laid, it's this victory of leadership.
There's a phrase, a cause greater than your own self-interest, that's ringing around in my head somewhere.
Join me in the solarium. Is it worse now, the inability of our political process to actually do anything than it used to be, or do we just hear more about it?
It's much worse than it used to be.
Is Citizens United to the left what Roe v. Wade is to the right? Is it just the Supreme Court decision that overreached?
Couple of things, and we can have a longer conversation.
And I'm not saying that Roe v. Wade overreached. I'm talking about the right's view of it.
Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah. One could argue that the Constitution does not. It's based on the right to privacy, I believe.
Oh my gosh, Is it Ruth Bader Ginsburg, if I'm not mistaken, makes exactly that argument.
Right.
She said that Roe v. Wade preempted the states in the political process and was overly aggressive. I don't happen to agree with that, but it's a principled argument from a respected figure on the left.
Well, we were talking about gay marriage. Ted Cruz said we should let the states vote on it, but we don't vote on rights. That's why they're called rights. I don't get to decide if you have rights.
I have to say this. We were talking about marriage equality in my class not too long ago. And one of the students, getting back to Ed's earlier point about Bill Clinton, expressed absolute incredulity that Bill Clinton had signed the Defense of Marriage Act. And what was difficult to explain, because I don't know any parallel or precedent for it,
what was that act again?
The Defense of Marriage Act essentially outlawed gay marriage in this country. And Bill Clinton signed it at the height of his 1996 campaign. 96.
Right.
Yeah.
What they say now is we were trying to head off a constitutional amendment, which is baloney.
Ridiculous. Totally ridiculous. Right up there with Wall Street gives me money because of 9/11.
Right, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I'm with you on that. But what's difficult to explain, because there's no precedent or parallel, is how extraordinarily fast the shift of opinion on marriage equality and gay rights has been in this country.
Amazing.
And I have not seen any other issue in public policy moving to the left or the right in which public opinion shifted so incredibly quickly. I'm paraphrasing Joe Biden on this one. I call it the will and gracification of America. You can go back a generation earlier to what the Cosby Show taught a lot of people who had not been exposed to African Americans.
We're giving Hollywood a lot of credit here.
I think they deserve a lot of credit on this. A lot of blame on other things, but a lot of credit on this. But
ironically, the Cosby Show showed us that African Americans were nice, responsible people.
Oh, you walked into that. Dan.
Where's Chris Rock? Where's Chris Rock when you need him? But back to Will and Grace, I think part of it is pop culture. But part of it's the same reason that support for comprehensive immigration reform is so much stronger among younger people of all ethnicities and races than older people, because you're exposed to it. If you are a 23-year-old college senior, the likelihood of you having a gay friend or friends who are involved in a same-sex relationship
or not knowing if you're gay or not.
Precisely.
I'm still at that juncture.
Yeah.
And I'm 57.
You're running out of time.
There's nothing straighter than two heterosexual dudes getting it on. My daughters are from China, adopted from China. They go to a very progressive school in Los Angeles. A lot of two mommies, a lot of two daddies.
Is that the Rip Torn Elementary School?
They go to Paul Lynn Junior High. But Sammy Davis.
Charles Nelson Riley.
Yeah, Sammy Davis Junior High. But they can't conceive that people care whether you have a mom and a dad, two moms and two dads.
I'm guessing that George Will is not frequently quoted on this program, but I saw him on TV not too long ago talking
only
about
when
this.
It's a show about boring analyses of baseball.
I was just going to say baseball. What a game it is.
Magic. Can we get Roger Angel on here before it's too late?
Angel.
But what he said, he said, look, my daughter and her friends find this entire issue of marriage equality. He said they find this issue extraordinarily uninteresting. It's just not relevant to them because it's such a commonly expected part of society. And explaining to someone who's 20 years old that 20 years ago, not only did a Democratic president sign the Defense of Marriage Act, regardless of the reasons, but he was met with overwhelming public and popular support for doing it. It's hard to explain how quickly public opinion has shifted. Some of that's pop culture. Some of that's just the younger end of this millennial generation.
20 years before that it was miscegenation.
We've convinced each other. What's next?
Yeah, we all win.
We're just scratching the surface on these issues.
We can do like a telethon. We're not going home till we've solved everything.
I'm going to press record in a minute.
Don't leave it. Yeah, don't leave your game in the locker room, sir. That's a sports analogy, by the way.
I know about sports. Yeah. I had a Bobby Orr poster in my bedroom as a child.
If that is his best and most recent sports reference point, then we're in trouble here.
It is, I think.
Although I'm sad that Ronda Rousey got defeated. I liked her.
UFC fighter.
Not a nice person. That was Trump's tweet.
I do see the B. Arthur all of a sudden.
You know, he's going to get elected. Trump, if he gets elected, on his slogan is just going to be like, nice hair.
Nice hair.
That's his.
I think that his implosion is going to be a face in the crowd proportions.
Oh, boy.
Best movie about showbiz ever made.
Face in the crowd with Andy Griffin.
Andy Griffin, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
That wasn't. Yeah, it was great.
Great movie, and the analogy is a perfect one. Consider it officially stolen. The first time I steal a great line, Dana, I credit the source. After that, it belongs to me.
That's totally fine. Okay. I would happily take it. And based on Arthur Godfrey. Lonesome Roads, yes.
I didn't know that.
Who famously chewed out like a PA, didn't know he was on camera, but didn't know his mic was on, chewed out a PA, and it basically ended his career.
Is this a Christian Bale kind of thing?
Yeah.
Except Bale's career is thriving.
And Godfrey's is not. Go figure.
Yeah, We're talking about all these crazy cults and religions that people would get into because they felt that their lives were out of control and that they needed something to make sense of their inner turmoil. And now we have drugs that do that.
Like, supposedly,
yeah. If I don't take Zoloft, I'm not as cool a cuke.
Yeah.
And how long have you been on it?
Since 1994.
Holy mackerel.
And I stopped taking it for a while and immediately and within 2 months regretted it.
So you don't develop like a tolerance, or do you have to increase the dosage?
Nope. No, and I have a very good doctor who it's all monitored, but
Are you shooting it now?
He has a very good, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah.
Attitude.
Yeah, that's good.
God, I gotta
because I would
hook
have
me up with that guy.
He's amazing, and what you were talking about, I would have, not insomnia, like I had a hard time getting to sleep. I would have insomnia, like I haven't slept in 4 days.
Yeah.
For no reason, and
and it's not like you're
and you are the Walking Dead.
Yeah,
and you're not just tired,
and you can't do anything when you're up.
You can't
do anything. It's not like you're alert to write.
Yeah, so could you function? Or I know you just said that you can't, but what would you do for the 4 days that you're up?
You're in hell.
Yeah.
You just walk around filled with anxiety that you're never going to sleep again and you're going to die. So what you do is you lie down, and the minute you lie down, you have a panic attack because you can't stop moving. So you have to get up, but you're exhausted, so you can't do anything once you're up. Yeah. But if you lie down, your heart starts to race, so you get up, but you can't do anything when you're up, and it is hell on earth.
So when do you take the Zoloft? What time of day or night?
I take every day. I have a Zoloft about the size of a brick that you'd have in a building, and I keep it in the glove box of my car, and I just hit that like a deer at a salt lick throughout the day.
That's good.
I take a tiny little pill in the morning.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah,
just that simple.
Yeah,
that sounds good.
I mean, I just take a little Xanax at night. I think it's 0.5 milligrams or something.
Yeah.
And it's just enough to like kick me into some sort of sleep level. Because I get sleep apnea too.
Yeah.
Where and it's awful because it's just you wake, you haven't breathed. But my dad gets that, and he's in perfect shape. Yeah. He looks like an Iggy Pop body, and he's 85.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, yeah. So, but anyway, this sort of, I guess that's the function that it does. It sort of sinks me into this thing where I'm not waking up and I'm actually able to breathe.
Yeah.
I'm not dead. Am I?
Your brain.
Am I?
Right. I don't know.
Yeah. The psychological aspect of it is what is like the most drowning feeling, because when you're constantly in those 4 days that you're awake, you're just constantly thinking about how you haven't slept. And then that just sort of spins you out into thinking like, why am I doing this to myself? And you can't help but blame yourself. At least that's how I feel.
There's no worse feeling than when you haven't slept and then you decide to just get up and get dressed and you surrender, like, fuck it, I'm up. And then that whole day you just look at every single person you see is like, they slept.
I know.
Yeah, you feel like you're not part of the world.
That is exactly
absolutely
right. That is exactly right. You are not a part of the world.
No, you're out of sync with every other bit of existence.
Yes, that is exactly it. And it is torture and it is hell.
And you can't stop talking about it too. Like you mention it to every single person that you speak to. It's like when you walk to a party, you can't stop talking about how you walked to the party. You can't stop talking about how you haven't slept. And good on you for sleeping, but I have not slept. So
yeah, did you sleep last night? Was that good? Yeah, I couldn't sleep. Oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
Oh, what was the longest you ever went without sleeping?
3 days probably.
3 days?
Yeah.
Wow.
Piker. Yeah. Rookie.
I know.
You've got me beat.
I've got room to grow.
You're young.
I know, yeah.
There's still a lot to be worried about later.
I'm only a year and some change to this whole wacky insomnia thing, so, let me pick up my speed.
In July of 1994, I went through a period of 11 days where I have no memory of sleeping, but am told that it is impossible that I didn't. but that ended at Cedars.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Like, how so?
I had to move out of my apartment, and it was just one of those perfect storm of stress and craziness.
Yeah.
And was talking to, and at the end of it all, in what was, I am told now, like day 10 or 11, my manager called me like, I haven't heard from you. How are you? And I was not rational.
Yeah.
And they literally came to my house and checked in on me, and I didn't look crazy, but then I started telling them what's going on, and they took me to Cedars. And what happened when I went to Cedars originally is like, well, when was the last time you slept? I don't remember. And they think, oh, okay, you're on drugs.
That's good, because you're a sober guy, right? Or you just don't do,
I don't do anything.
Not part of
they
your thing.
immediately think you're coked out of your skull.
Right, yeah.
So then they test your blood and they test your urine, and then you sit in the room for a couple hours. Then they come back and they're like, what's happening with you? Because you're not on anything.
Right.
And then this other doctor who was attending at Cedars was a psychiatrist, like came in, and it's so funny because once, like, I just thought I was insane and I was going to stay awake until I died. And right now I was just biding time until that happened. Like, that's the only thing that you think.
But you do reach a level of insanity with
absolutely.
lacking that much sleep.
Oh no, I was insane. I was nuts. And when the doctor comes in, he just names it. Oh yeah, this is a somnambulistic hypervigilance, and we're just going to give you this, and we're going to get you comfortable. and I started taking Klonopin and Zoloft as a cocktail, and I was on that for and I got comfortable right away.
Yeah.
And the first couple of weeks, I had an apartment on Beechwood, right by the Hollywood sign, and I would often go to bed and wake up in the living room.
Oh no!
I'd wake up on the couch or in the chair in the living room, and I just, because my sleep pathology was so out of whack,
right,
that my body was doing all sorts of crazy.
Is that in your family?
Well, everyone in my family drinks a lot. And so
they can sleep.
Well, my doctor said, goes, you can medicate with a sledgehammer or you can medicate with a scalpel. It's your call.
Yeah.
And that's what it was. But Klonopin is incredibly addictive. And when getting off Klonopin, you can't just stop doing it. You have to slowly come off it. And I still have them. I'll take maybe one every 2 months. If I just feel like I'm not going to, instead of starting that cycle again,
right? Yeah.
I'll just head it off. How many women listening are too turned on by the concept that I'm available? This guy's single? What?
Yeah. Well, there's probably actually so he's got a lot of Klonopin.
No, he's got a lot of Klonopin in his house. Yeah,
that's like a dangling carrot for a certain demographic, I think.
But now it's like, now I can't even, it's like I have children now, so it's like I can't go crazy. I have too many responsibilities. Yeah. But also that was, I will also say that having children was the best thing that ever happened from a selfish point of view, because it just, my life is not about me anymore.
They saved you.
They give your life purpose, and it's the best thing that can ever happen, because all of those things that drove me crazy in my late 20s that did that to me, it's all ridiculous now.
Yeah.
And it just puts all of that in perspective. But it's like, and you can't fuck around. You can't go crazy anymore. You have kids. But then the one time in 2014, I stopped taking Zoloft, which I'd been on for, at that point, 20 years.
Why'd you stop?
I'd been on it 20 years, and I'd been fine for a decade. And I thought, well, I probably don't need this anymore. It's probably not even doing anything. And within 2 months, I was on night 3 of no sleep.
Yeah, and
went right back to my doctor, and I got comfortable again.
Wow. So when you have that insomnia, and I don't know if it's the same thing for you, but what's going through your head? Are you just thinking in circles, or?
Yes.
Yeah. Amy Poehler described it pretty accurately in her book, where she said that it felt like when she was laying down to go to sleep, that suddenly it was almost as if a computer hard drive was like whirring on, where it's not that you're active.
Called, somnambulistic hypervigilance, where your body, you are under threat. And your body will not let you sleep because it can't shut off because you are under threat and you have to stay alert. All those guys in France and in World War II, you'd start to drift asleep. With me, I would literally start to sleep and jerk awake.
Yeah.
Because your body's like, don't sleep.
Yeah.
And that's exquisite torture. That's like...
Yeah, my mind just gets occupied. It just it's not that my eyes have to be open. I'm just lying down and my mind's just sort of going around in circles, just thinking about
monkey brain.
Monkey brain.
Yeah, monkey brain.
Well, I can watch, I'll find myself lying in bed with the laptop watching, just going down some rabbit hole. Like last night, I went down to the YouTube rabbit hole of blackheads and whiteheads being squeezed.
You're into that? I know people. Yeah, that's a thing.
I'm willing to talk about it.
Oh my goodness,
that's on YouTube.
It's a whole culture. People love it.
It's a whole
thing. My ex-wife is one of those people. I hope she forgives me for putting this on the podcast. But she found on YouTube, it looked like a wiffle ball on the back of a guy's neck.
It's unbelievable.
It was like watching the birth of a baby made of mayonnaise.
Yeah. No.
What is appealing to you about it?
It's hard to say.
No, you can do anything on YouTube. Like I once spent literally 2 hours watching live performances of Bellboy.
Yeah,
just various Keith Moon singing for a good 2 hours.
I know, but it's.
I'll go again running now.
No,
that is weird. But it's amazing what gets harvested off people's skin.
Yeah.
And there is sort of a fascination with the digging out of the thing. Mm-hmm. And there's a line for me. It can get too gross.
Yeah.
And I don't do it with any kind of regularity. But the whole reason I brought this up was, and it could be watching Bellboy, but I just, lying in bed, zoning out on this thing, and realizing you're going to sleep. You better turn the computer off. Turn it off. Then, gang, I am so not. And like you said, it's
so
a little whirring
times.
up. Then,
yeah. But that's the feeling when you think, I'm falling asleep. This is good. No, you're not. If I'm thinking that, I'm not falling asleep.
Well, I don't get
when you're falling asleep is when you start thinking about, hey, marshmallows are good for sore throats. That's like a balloon, a parachute. What if an ice cube tray came down in the parachute?
Yeah.
That's when you're out.
Yeah.
My big problem now is my daughter's cat, Mr. Mustache.
I met Mr. Mustache.
Yeah, Mr. Mustache.
Are you going to pick up that name you just dropped?
Mr. Mustache likes to sleep on my head. Like literally
my
last
mom's
night.
Cat used to do that.
Yeah, 5 o'clock in the morning, Mr. Mustache. Hey, this is pretty good. Literally right on my head. People on the left will say, like, well, here's the deal. The average Fox viewer is 67. And so we only have to put up with this stuff for another 20 years, and then it will be a progressive paradise. No, then there'll be new 67-year-old people.
Exactly. People get older, right?
Yeah, I'm assuming that's what happens.
I'm pretty confident on that one, actually. Yeah. But that said, this is yet another place where I think Republicans have a real misunderstanding on the immigration issue. Even for those who believe that comprehensive reform is an important thing to do, and they're a minority in the party, but they're there, invariably hear them saying it's a political necessity.
It is.
The demographics of the country are changing. If we don't move on immigration, we will be unsuccessful politically in the future. Now think about that for a second. Imagine if you went to the Santa Monica Young Democrats Club and said, listen, in order to take back the U.S. Senate in 2016, we need to win Senate races in hard red states in the Deep South and the Rocky Mountain states. So I need all of you Santa Monica Young Democrats to stop being pro-choice and start being pro-life, because it will be good for the Democratic Party politically.
Right.
They're not going to do it. Right. And so when you go to somebody who disagrees with immigration reform, even for reasons that I consider to be invalid, and tell them that the reason to switch is not because it's the moral thing to do or the right thing to do, because it will help elect people who they've never met and will never meet to office, it's probably not going to move a lot of votes.
No, it shouldn't.
Yeah. You can't win the presidency without Latinos, as Mitt Romney will tell you.
Mitt Romney received roughly the same percentage of the white vote that Ronald Reagan did in his election.
It's just not enough anymore.
Exactly.
And the only Republican who knew this to work, George W. Bush. And they didn't go for it. And now I am personally offended and angered and disgusted by this wave of cowardice towards allowing 10,000 people from Syria to come to our country because of the actions of a small group of terrorists in Paris. And the tidal wave of, I can only describe it as chicken shit fear. Why is it that the people that are always the most gun-toting, swaggering, John Wayne-y Americans are the first one to go, no, lock the door?
And this is not something
that's why they have their guns. They're petrified.
But I think you'd also agree this is not a new phenomenon in American history.
Not at all.
In World War II,
we turned away Jewish refugees.
And we locked Japanese American immigrants for the duration of the war.
Boy, we don't have a great history in that respect, especially with the Japanese.
Yeah.
My point.
That was a brilliant George Carlin routine in his final show about rights. Because anybody who wants to talk about rights, go on Wikipedia, look up Japanese Americans, 1942, and it'll tell you all you need to know about your rights. Because just when these people needed their rights, the government said, right this way.
But this gets back to your point about leadership. I teach a class here in leadership, as I was telling you guys about before we went live. And the way my students define political leadership, a leader is someone who's willing to lose their office in order to do the right thing. And standing up to not just an angry, but a frightened group of citizens.
Yeah.
And saying, taking your fears and anger out on the other is not the right thing to do. That takes a rare amount of courage and a rare amount of leadership. And we will see over the next couple of weeks how many American politicians will stand up to that.
A lot of these things have a very strong cultural basis in our country. That there's just a lot of xenophobia, and it's like the first person to say close the borders, I think, was Chief Massasoit. We might have to go back to him. I don't think, as I said,
racist.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we just had Halloween, which is where people you don't know come to where you live, and you have to give them stuff or they'll fuck up your place.
Arguably with lower stakes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the next holiday we have is Thanksgiving, or as Native Americans call it, Halloween. Bobby Kennedy's presidency. What would have happened?
Don't show off for me. I have no idea.
No, but what do you like? Would he have been elected? He would have gotten the nomination.
Who was he going against that year?
He was going against
Nixon.
Nixon was the Republican nominee, and George Wallace. Remember?
Yeah, Nixon. George Wallace.
It was the Wallace candidacy that elected Nixon by taking away Southern Democratic votes.
Hubert Humphrey and Eugene McCarthy to his Eugene McCarthy to his left, Hubert Humphrey to his right.
A few months ago, when Biden was thinking about running, I read a really smart thing from someone who I can't remember, so I have to take credit for what he said. Sure. He set out a parallel to the 1968 election with the Democratic primary.
With Bobby Kennedy unable to make his mind.
Hillary is Hubert Humphrey.
Mm-hmm.
Bernie Sanders is Eugene McCarthy.
Yeah, and Biden was Bobby Kennedy.
Exactly.
Perfect.
Which is, I think, putting an awful lot on Joe Biden.
Yeah.
But it speaks to the inherent weaknesses in a Clinton candidacy. Probably not sufficient weaknesses to prevent her from getting the nomination, which means at that point she becomes the odds-on favorite for the presidency.
Yeah.
But once again, we'll come back to what we talked about earlier in terms of inspiration. And your concerns about Hillary Clinton, Ed, I think are entirely valid.
More the same.
I think Hillary Clinton will be our next one-term president.
Well, that should make her both happy and sad.
Can I end with this? This is a quote from Father Ted Berrigan. If electoral politics worked, they wouldn't be legal.
Okay. Perfect note to close on, because I don't understand it. So that's a perfect time to close this out.
So it's a symbol from, it's a YMCA sleepaway camp that I have been going to since I was 8 years old. And the way that the tattoo artist did it, I maybe should not have been so like free and flexible for him being an artist to like try his thing, even though I like it. But he was like, yeah, let me burn the edges, make it really trippy. So now whenever I show people my tattoo, they're like, whoa, like what mysticism cult are you in?
Yeah.
Or, like, Rush
like that,
rules. Like I get a lot of Rush rules.
You could just solve that by tattooing "fuck" right there across the top. You know?
I was recently hanging out with a guy who was up in Calgary, Alberta, performing, and the guy who manages the club, a really good guy, and he was talking about so I was in Vegas with some friends of mine, and I was just drunk and I was crazed, and I go into the tattoo store, and this girl's like really hip, and she doesn't want to have anything to do with me. I'm this drunken guy. I was like, I have this tattoo, and she's like, we're booked. Like, doesn't even look up. Like, we're booked. Mm-hmm. Like, at the Hard Rock. It's like the tattoo parlor in the Hard Rock.
Yeah.
No interest in him at all. You know, I was like, Lemmy's coming in. We don't have time for you, dipshit. Mm-hmm. I was like, oh, okay. And I have it drawn what I want. And I go, I was wondering if I could get this tattooed. And as she's saying we're booked, one of the tattoo artists in the back stands up and goes, I'll do that right now.
Oh, man.
So the tattoo artist, so now the girl's pissed because the tattoo guy goes, you were lying. Mm-hmm. And he goes, all right. And he goes, hang on. I'll be right back. I'm not bailing. And he's like, I just got to go to my room. Here's my wallet. I'm not bailing. I'll be right back. So he goes up to his room with his buddies and he goes like, all right, I think I'm going to get this tattoo, but I'm drunk. Last chance to get me out of this.
Oh, no.
And I don't think anybody was sober enough to go, yeah. So he goes, so I went down and I got it. And I go, what is it? And he goes, all right. And he takes off his coat and he pulls up his sleeve, and written on the inside of his upper bicep in big letters is meow or never.
Oh, that's beautiful. Oh, that's beautiful. Okay. Yeah, man, that's great. Yeah, of course. I'll do that right now.
Don't see that every day.
Are you tattooed?
I actually do have a tattoo of. If I can show it to you, let me pull my pants off here. I have OK, which was a record label from the 30s, and then above that, the face of Louis Armstrong.
Oh wow,
nice.
1931.
Wow, yeah.
So they match, and it's. I don't know. You know, it's about 18, 17 years. It's old.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a little.
And I don't know. You know, now I kind of wish just like everyone's got tattoos. Who cares? What I don't know. It's,
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It fascinates me, that whole subject. And again, dates me too. But I'll see somebody who's like sleeve tattoos or pistols above the breasts of this beautiful, pristine 20-year-old girl. I
know.
What am I missing about this Are they just that much more confident they will always feel this way? Or are you going to get, when you're 40, 50, 60, is it possible that you might wake up and go like, why the fuck did I do that?
I have mixed feelings about my tattoos because they do become a part of you. Like you just, I don't know, you regard them in a different way. Like, oh yeah, it's like not a birthmark, but it just becomes a part of you. It's less about like maybe something that you would actively want to get this day now, like marching to the tattoo salon. But I also feel like the next generation is going to be completely tattoo-less to revolt against their parents.
That's what I think. I have none. Mm-hmm. I've never come across anything
never entertained
that I like.
The idea?
I've never come across anything that I like that much. Mm-hmm. That I would like on a. I have stuff on my wall for like 4 months. I'm like, I should change that. It's like,
that's what I mean. It's that weird thing of like, you're always going to want this.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I hope it goes out before and now it's like not even arms. Now it's up onto hands.
Well, the neck tat.
The neck,
which is
the neck tattoo is just a way of saying, I don't want to work at your bank.
Yeah, exactly.
And I really hope that before my oldest is 13 and I'm just like, I don't want this. And neither her mother nor I have tattoos. And we're like, and we don't want you to get them.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, I just, I will say as a parent, having seen your body from when you were a baby, I don't want you permanently changing it. It's
Well, and it can look really. From across the street,
unless
you
it's
see somebody in
really
shorts.
Funny.
Yeah.
Like what's the poor skin disease they've got? I don't know what is that.
Right.
Yeah, there's if I was going to get another one, or if I didn't have this, or whatever in this fantasy world, I think in Horse Feathers, the Marx Brothers film, there's something where Harpo gets grabbed by a cop, show some ID. And he pulls up his sleeve, and on his, underneath left forearm is a tattoo of his own face.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's funny.
And so get the same tattoo right there, and then 10 years later, why did I do that?
Yeah. You could have on your arm, but again, it's funny once.
Right.
It's I wouldn't mind on my arm, just a little thing that said, "I'm just kidding. I was never in a concentration camp."
Well, that'd be funny forever, though.
Yeah.
Especially to people who really were.
I better just shut up.
Yeah.
And I have this theory that old folks' homes in the future,
it's going to look like a clown that got stuck in the rain.
Yeah, especially dementia patients, the nurses are going to be like, "Can you tell me what your tattoo means again?" To spark their memory and to get them back on track.
I think one of the big plastic surgery procedures coming up is going to be pulling tramp stamps up below the waistline of your pants.
Yeah, seriously, I think tattoo removal in the next 20, 30 years will be just that's what you got to get into, son.
Yeah, or just hauling up a tramp stamp.
Yeah,
because now it looks like your ass has a mustache.
Oh,
ass dash.
We just created an Adult Swim show, you guys. We're all going to be.
No, it makes too much sense.
I know. I know.
Only if we act it with salt and pepper shakers, but only film their shadow.
Yeah.
I like a show that's how could there possibly be another 15 minutes of this? That's how I feel.
Yeah. I like a show that makes you realize, well, I know they didn't put a lot of thought into it.
Yeah.
Thanks for taking up my time.
Yeah.
Speaking of taking up your time, the album is called?
Every Joke on This Album Kills, because I cut out the ones that didn't.
And what do people end up calling it in shorthand?
Every Joke on This Album Kills, because the last part is in parentheses.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
It's like a hip-hop song from the 90s.
My album, Let Me Put My Thoughts in You, is now called Thoughts, which is it's like a Judy Collins album. Thoughts.
I'll learn.
My new album, Afternoon Moods.
or if it was a Rod McEwen, thoughts, you.
Thoughts, you.
Ooh, I like that.
Or the Kingsley Amos book, Girl, 20.
Yeah.
I read that ruefully. And where can we find you, Peter?
You can just Google my name and see what comes up. That's
Google my name and go Yahoo yourself.
Other podcast reach for the sky. Dana Goldauer. We barely try.
This has been the Dana Gould Hour, brought to you by the Internet. Music by Andy Paley, with Jake Posner behind the board. Produced by Jeff Fox. Graphic design and web production by Spencer Hunt and Segan Friend. Sound editing and post-production by Jalinda Palmer and Joe Napolitano. Hey, if you like the show, why don't you drop us a line at show@danagould.com. Tom Kenny speaking.
There's nothing like the taste of a char-grilled
Oh my
hamburger.
gosh.